Welcome back, horror fans, to the Week in Horror Podcast, the only podcast that warned you not to go out tonight. This week, we're covering select horror films released in horror history during February 14th through February 20th. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Eugene, and with me today is Alex and JL.
What's happening?
How's it going, everybody?
And we'd also like to extend a huge welcome to our special guest, the second victim of our Abattoir, YouTube content creator, Krafty Keelah.
Hello, how are you? I am delighted to be on here. Shush, be nice. I'm really excited to be here. I've been following the podcast pretty much since you came onto YouTube. Thank you, JL, for actually leading me to the podcast. So it's actually, I'm not a big fan of horror, but I have a particular, we'll talk about this later, I have a particular version of what I think horror is, and this podcast is kind of introducing me into a wider field of horror movies.
Excellent.
We gave Krafty our selection of horror films for the week, and as we look back on them, we're going to get her take on what she took away from them as a first-timer. Hopefully she wasn't too traumatized.
Yeah, to be honest, I was glad for this selection because what I gave, I'll readily admit that what I gave Irish Demon was an absolute softball pitch. But then again, he's a big softy crybaby, and I didn't want to like chase him away. We still like having him on the Four Beardsmen, and so I was like, I'll go easy on him. I'll really go easy on him. If he's ever on the show again, I'm going to go super hard. But I will admit, I gave Krafty some solid picks.
Well, you know, I could actually imagine Irish Demon, even after watching Gremlins, like sitting in the corner of the Four Beardsmen, like holding his legs together and rocking back and forth.
Just running a cold shower,
yeah, that's Demon. That's Demon. He can't handle hot food, and he can't handle horror movies. Like,
oh man, you guys don't let up on him, huh?
No,
we don't. We really don't. And the George said Alex is a little on the quiet side.
Quiet side.
Which is surprising for you, Alex.
Do you need me to yell into the mic?
No, don't. Yeah, please don't do that. While he's looking at that, let me take a look at who is in the chat. Well, Charlie Welch was first tonight. Sorry, Jessica G. But Charlie Welch, good to see you. Jessica G was number 2, but you'll always be number 1 in our hearts. Now, our Scream Queen is kicking ass, and of course, not letting me off the hook, just beating me up in the chat. See, PhD Tony, good to see you. Another member of the Four Beardsmen, so thank you so much for coming out. Who else? We have lots of Jessica G, just kicking the shit out of me. No, it does not stand for Jesus Lives Matter at all. Basic trigonometry, so good to see you. Who else do we have? I saw some other names in there as well. Math Pig. So good to see you. Thank you for coming out. Math Pig's an awesome dude. He does atheist content creation, and I recently met him after my last video went out, and he was like, "Dude, man, you look like you know what you're doing, so let's be friends." And I was like, "That dude is really cool. Definitely check him out. He's on YouTube." And of course, and the George said, "We in this bish? Yes, we are." And and there's Daryl M. Oh, and Kevin Paul. Good to see you too. And Commander Darklight. So I am. Hey, good to see you. Hope everybody is safe out there, especially if you're here in the States. Here in Texas, it's absolutely insane. Armageddon's fire. Except Armageddon's ice would be it. But Armageddon's fire. Good to see you. Hugh Jars. Monk Mayfair. Oh, man, all the awesome people. And there's Jinju. Jinju, let me shoot me your address. Because remember, I still need to get you your T-shirt from last week. So I want to get that shipped out to you ASAP. So, but yeah, good Lord, I was a little afraid tonight. Everybody was asking, we scheduled at 8:15. Normally we run at 8. But I had to schedule at 8:15. I want to make sure people had plenty of time because I got called out to work, and I know that everybody's pretty familiar with the insanity that's going on in Texas right now. We literally cannot handle it if the weather drops below like 20 degrees. So I think right now it's like just above freezing. It's going to get colder, and it's absolutely crazy. Like, we have no infrastructure for this. And the fact that this little ice apocalypse is going all the way, is hitting all the way down at Houston is pretty damn insane. So To be fair.
Russia.
And Plottle says, to be fair, it got down to -2. Now, I know that doesn't seem a lot for, we have a lot of people in Canada, a lot of people in Europe. It doesn't seem a lot for us, but Texas is not really built for this. I've lived in Texas for just over 30 years. I have never seen this the entire time I've been here. Alex was telling us that his parents have never seen anything like this in all the time they've lived in Texas. So we just don't have the infrastructure for this. Not to mention the biggest issue with our power, because our power keeps going out, water keeps getting cut off. It's absolutely crazy. Well, the water keeps getting shut down because the systems are freezing. So water can't get to homes. The power keeps coming out because our power grid infrastructure is separate from that of the rest of the nation, either the west or the east side. We have our own little like independent thing going on. And because of that, our power suppliers are able to gouge prices and are absolutely killing a lot of people on the prices for kilowatts per hour, which is going insane. And of course, our Governor Greg Abbott is doing nothing about it. So, but I myself, I was afraid I might be late. I had 3 pipes burst off of a boiler at the complex that I work at, and so flooded the boiler room. That boiler is dead. It'll probably be like 3 or 4 days before a vendor can come out and start looking at it. And of course, half the complex does not have hot water. So that's what I was currently dealing with right before the show. And I know everybody else is dealing with. I know, Alex, you had some craziness over in your area.
The whole neighborhood lost power for a couple days. My parents have been out of power for 3 full days.
Ugh.
Their toilets are frozen. It's not as much as it is the cold. Like I was telling JL, I'm from the north. I was born in Chicago. I lived in Minneapolis for 16 years. Like, the cold is survivable for anybody who has basic survival instincts. It's the fact that the power is shut down. The pumps at the water stations around our area couldn't keep up, so the pumps shut down for a little bit. So like water wasn't even frozen; they just couldn't get to us. And luckily, we only had, like I said, I've dealt with this before, so we knew the precautions to take to keep the whole house from freezing up. But we still even had one pipe that's along the outside wall freeze up, with all precautions taken. It's just the houses aren't built to have to deal with that kind of weather. They're not insulated the same as they are up north. And, you know, our stuff is not in basements where it's nice and warm under the ground. It's rough. It sucks. The worst part is like trying to get people to not drive. So they just shut everything down because it's safer to just stay home for a couple of days. We know from quarantine that we can survive in the houses for a few days. So, yeah. You know, it's as long as we stocked up on, we had 25 gallons of fresh drinking water before the whole thing happened. And enough non-perishable food to last a few days if we needed it too. But I was still out here cutting up 2x4s in the garage for firewood because we ran out because we had no power. It was cold.
Damn. Monk Mayfair says it's all the way down to Galveston. There is snow on the beaches.
Yeah.
Oh wow,
that is wild. So Little Wolf is joining
Austin, friends out in Austin who are now trying to help because there's a huge homeless population out there. So they're out driving around, handing out food, trying to find shelter. There's a lot of people booking hotels for the homeless to go sleep in and stuff. So everybody's helping out. It's a community for sure.
Yeah, it's great. And of course, you know, we're sitting here talking about all our woes and everything. Krafty is over there in friggin' Scotland or friggin' Ireland. She's like, -2? What the fuck? It's like...
I actually think it's funny because Sir Little Wolf, if you want to tell people where you're from and they can't handle a bit of cold. Now, having said that, neither can fucking we. We thankfully have not had, well, we've had snow, we've had flurries, but thankfully, because it's Ireland, it rains all the goddamn time. So it doesn't stick. And it's not cold enough for it to stick yet. So we've been just going about our days while you guys have been suffering. I'm sorry, not.
I will recount the differentiation of weather one time. I went to Hawaii for 1 week, and in Hawaii we went during the summer. So in Texas it was like 115 at the time, and then of course we're there in Hawaii. It's like 73 degrees, absolutely gorgeous. Wind is blowing. It's just heaven on earth. So we were taking a catamaran ride. And on the catamaran was a whole bunch of tourists, like this one, and I was like looking around, I was like, "This is fantastic, it's great." I see this one family, and they are just fucking dying. They're just over there, just look like they're about to expire from heat prostration, and it's just like, So I'm like, "Oh my god, these poor people!" It's like, "What is wrong with this?" I was like, "Are you guys okay? Are you too hot?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, they were from Scotland, where apparently 73 degrees is Fahrenheit, of course, where apparently 73 degrees Fahrenheit is just way too much for them." I was like, and they were like, "Oh, you're okay?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm from Texas." He's like, "Well, how hot is it in Texas?" I was like 115, maybe like 120 with the heat index. They're like, "What?"
For like
"Oh,
50 days in a row too. It's like it's
Yeah.
not like a week. It's all summer.
I remember one time we did the 90 over 100, and it was literally 3 months straight. Every single day was over 100 degrees.
That's when I moved here. I was like, what the fuck did I do?
It's like, what the hell, dude? I was playing 2 days football in that crap, man. That'll toughen you up. But yeah, things are absolutely insane here in Texas. Luckily, we all have power. We're lucky there. We all have power. We all have internet. So
I'm sitting out in the garage like an idiot.
But as Alex likes to say, we are fucking here to talk about horror movies. Stop boring everybody with our personal shit. So what do you say we kick this pig? Eugene, what do we have up first?
All right. Well, the first movie we have is called The Signal. That was released February 22nd, 2008. It was directed by David Bruckner, Dan Bush, and Jacob Gentry, and stars A.J. Bowen, Anessa Ramsey, and Justin Wellborn.
You practiced those, didn't you?
I did.
I'm so proud of you.
Y'all were talking about Snow Apocalypse. I was like, well, let me go over these names real quick.
Our little boy is growing up.
Pronunciation.
Hey,
I want to
bad
throw
ones
out here about the cast on this real quick. Because we were talking about Lynn Shay, because we've got another one of her movies coming up. She was in this too.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. So, and basically,
Lynn Shay wasn't in this one.
Yes, she was. She was one of. She was a passenger in one of the cars when they were doing the stops. The cop walks up and knocks on her window. She's in it for like a minute. She was like a huge.
Huh?
That must have been.
There you go.
That must have been a
me and
blinking.
JL were talking about Lynn Shay when we were breaking this down, and then I watched this movie and I was like, "Wait, she is again."
No shit.
Huh? I totally did not catch it.
Did not catch that. Yeah, got right by me. Okay.
Sorry, just trivia.
No, good call. That's a good call. So
Fun
basically, fun fact. So basically, what ends up happening is a signal gets pumped out through television, cell phones, radios, everything, and it turns people into like ravenous killers. And so basically, like half the population goes and starts just flipping out insane and slashing people's throats with shears and killing people with baseball bats and a bunch of other stuff that happens, and shit gets crazy.
Shit gets crazy.
Shit gets crazy is like the understatement of the century with this movie.
Seriously.
Yes, Krafty. So I definitely kicked you off with I would say super violent one, because there's a lot of violence in this one, but the concept of everyone going insane all at once. So I'm gonna say, so what was your takeaway on this particular one? Had you ever seen anything like this one before?
Yeah, it would be kind of more what I would consider horror. But what's great about it is a lot of the killing, although it's quite graphic, a lot of the killing, especially in the second part, takes place off screen. So there's a scene where there's a wife and her husband sitting at a table. I'm sure you know the scene. And she's like,
yes.
Yeah, I'm not really up for visitors. And then it pans to him, and he's sitting there on the chair, like completely destroyed.
Oh.
It was what I was saying to JL. It was quite like Shaun of the Dead. It was that the second part of it seemed really out of place and really kind of dark comedy, which I actually like. But it was very hard then to get into the third part of it, and there is one scene in particular in the third part, and I don't want to ruin it for people that haven't seen it, but fuck it. And it's you can view it. It's the I Am Lewis scene, and it's that play between the two of them, Ben and Lewis, and it's brilliant. I think it's one of the better scenes that I've seen in horror.
Good. That's high praise for the first movie you're kicking off on.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. That's very good to hear. And I do get a little bit of that kind of the bit of discordancy because you had 3 different directors in this film, and of course you're going to get a different style in every single segment. So I was looking at the I think it was of the parts. There was the Transmission 1, which was Crazy in Love, and that was directed by David Bruckner. And then, of course, Transmission 2, which is The Jealousy Monster, directed by Jacob Gentry. And then Escape from Terminus, which is the 3rd installment, which was directed by Dan Bush. And each one of the directors also wrote their own segments. So all 3 of them came from basically the same subject matter, but came from a completely different style. Which why a lot of people did say that the film felt very jarring because you go from one methodology or one kind of like ideology of the subject to the next. And that's why from the first one to the third one feels very disjointed. But I thought it flowed excellently because I thought it emphasized the perspectives a lot better and allowed for more people to kind of put themselves in the shoes of the protagonist.
But the problem I had with it was the tension that they had been building up in the first segment is just like done away with in the second for a bit of dark comedy. And so for the purposes of keeping continuity, it's very, very difficult because it breaks the illusion because you're engrossed in this film and all of a sudden it switches genre, really.
Interesting.
I can understand that because it's like if you took, let's say episode 7, episode 8 of Star Wars, where you have all this stuff set up in episode 7, then episode 8 just like takes a dump on it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
the storylines that they've been setting up is like, we'll leave that till later. Have a look at this though first,
Something kind of similar.
Don't forget what you just watched.
Something kind of similar. Just it kind of dawns on me now that the Purge runs kind of the similar gamut because you have different takes from everybody's different experiences during the events of the Purge. So across that entire film franchise, you have these wildly different moments that people are dealing with. So, and it can run the gamut from like dark comedy to even almost satire to straight up, like tension building horror. So, and you go throughout that whole franchise, it really runs the gamut of that. So I think those two kind of parallels. Now, I think that's kind of interesting.
This is why we're here, to dive deeper into these movies, Joe.
Absolutely. I like it. I really dug the signal because each individual, I love contained stories and I love anthologies. So, and while it was all during the same event, I liked getting little short stories because very similar to other anthologies, very similar to like Southbound, the contained story offers threads to other things that may not get resolved. And it's kind of like a glimpse into that life without a it's just a one moment in this giant event, just like in Southbound, where you get this one glimpse of this one event going on, but then your mind is left to kind of fill in the blanks of the before and the after. And I really, really dig that kind of storytelling because for me, it feels more immersive. To a lot of people, it would feel more disjointed, which it kind of felt that way to Krafty, if I'm getting you correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, and so for me, when I'm watching a movie, it is all about continuity. It's about, for any movie that is taking on a fantasy role in any way, shape, or form, whether it's dystopia, whether it's sci-fi, you have to suspend your belief and buy into the story that they're telling. And then when they completely switch styles, it's very hard to adapt to that new style. You have to immediately switch your brain, but then to stay in that moment that you had, that initial moment where you're following the story and you're invested in the story and you're investing in these characters. Why the hell do we care about the characters? It's because of the intro. It's that opening segment that tells us about our characters and why we should give a damn. And that's kind of tossed out the window a little bit in segment 2 and then reintroduced in segment 3. So it's kind of like, what it reminded me of is, when you're in the cinema and you're engrossed in this movie, and then all of a sudden you have to go to the bathroom and you have to leave. You think you've missed something because all of a sudden the movie just switches.
Yes, there was a kind of weird thing where you don't get a sensation of how much time has passed in between each segment. So that was a little bit disconcerting. He's just like, okay, have we been here for a week? Have we been here for a few, just, is it the same night? So it was unable to tell because like we were going to talk about, everybody in this goes insane. So every single person who gets hit with the signal goes absolutely batshit crazy, but they go crazy to different degrees. Most people become extraordinarily violent, and they just start like killing whoever they come across. But some people go like a different kind of insane, like an almost subdued, where it's just, they're not reacting to the world appropriately. So say someone like in a dissociative state, or someone suffering from extreme cognitive failure, where they're just not viewing reality as normal, but they still look like they're functioning. So it was really, really weird. And especially between the first segment and the second segment, you get a real sense of that. That one dude, but there were some people that were not affected. I'm sorry, I keep thinking back to the dude at the party. It's like I would find a girl, what was it, pee in her butt? Yeah. that dude, I don't know why that character was so captivating amongst all of it, because he's not nuts, but his behavior, he's not insane. He hasn't been driven insane, but everything is going on, and he's just kind of like normal amongst all this shit. So I don't know.
Well, I'm kind of curious, because so you sat there and talked about in terms of I wonder how much that affected your expectations, knowing that it was like a 3 stories. Like, if, for example, if you had something like the ABCs of horror, where you had 26 directors, like Krafty, if you knew that maybe going into it, so you have like in ABCs of horror, you have these little like 5-minute segments just throughout the entire alphabet. Would that have affected what you're expecting going into the film, or would you still have the same result?
No, it would definitely alter what I expected. I'm trying to. It's the only thing that comes close to watching The Signal that I can draw on is reading anything by James Joyce, particularly Dubliners. And what he does is these series of random stories that have absolutely nothing to do with each other, except for maybe one little link. And that's the genius of Dubliners. So he tells this story, and then he moves on to another story, and you're always waiting for it to go back to the original story. Now, in the Signal, they do go back to the original story, which is great, which you don't really get in Dubliners. But that's the only way I can actually explain it. So if you have this expectation, if you understand that going into it, you will accept the parameters and the rules as they apply. So when the next segment comes, okay, this is the next segment, this is what I have. So your brain is already pre-prepared for what's about to happen. And so it makes it easier to jump back into this third section when you know that there is this new section that's coming. When I sat down to watch The Signal, I knew nothing about it. I knew absolutely nothing about it. I jumped straight in blind, which is half the fun for me. And so it was very confusing when it first switched, because I was like, are they actually doing dark comedy now? What is this movie? This is supposed to be horror. What is this movie?
I'm laughing and I'm crying at the same time. Why?
But it did. I liked it. Don't get me wrong. I think it's the one I liked least, except for that one scene, the I Am Lewis scene. And actually, just to talk about that for a second, because the body switch really that they do, the mind switch that they do in that scene, where Ben is trying to convince Lewis that in fact he's not the husband. He's not, everything that he thinks is true is a lie.
Yeah.
And what results in that. We won't spoil what happens with that. That scene is just absolutely incredible. It goes to show how suggestible people are as well under, quote unquote, the signal. Also, the reliance on technology and how vulnerable we are to suggestible things in technology. And we see this all around us. That's what fascinated me of how they actually captured that. You know, this one signal told you to kill and you had to kill. That's
almost
incredible.
Almost like a complete rewriting of the brain. Like if you just like a complete restructuring of our basic impulses.
Yeah, and it seemed to be deliberate, and you never really understood where it came from.
See, that was an interesting aspect as far as horror films go. And the reason I really dug this is because insanity is such a terrifying subject. The loss of the ability to function rationally, especially in large group situations, things like mass hysteria, have always the concept of these have always disconcerted me. That people, given the right motive or given the right stimuli, can be pushed to do things you would never expect. Or given the right impulse. And if something like this were to occur, then you're looking at who is the sane one at this point. Like, to what degree of sanity can we still trust anything that's going on? And of course, human beings being what we are, a crazy person who's on the I think it was the opening. It was the street scene when they're looking at the apartment window, the apartment building, and seeing everything that's going on and the insanity that's happening. The idea of that actually kind of freaks me. It kind of creeps me out, because our society's always felt on the razor's edge of falling into that, and knowing that it would take something so simple, something so seemingly innocuous, like you mentioned, the technology that binds us all together, and just tweaking that one way, and it's just absolute freaking chaos. So
two things. Go ahead.
Go on, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, I got distracted by the chat. But what I did want to say was similar things have happened in our history. MK Ultra is just one example, and from MK Ultra, and the experiments before it, they tried to design this ability to control, to adapt someone's memories, to destroy someone's memories. So what was scary actually about the signal was it's not far off having the ability to happen. It is very, very, very realistic. It's very close to happening if they could just work out the proper signals to actually give us. Now, having said that, there's no reason why they would, I would hope. But it's that idea that it's dystopian, yes, it's horror, yes, it's fiction, but it's so close to having transpired in our history. With the MK Ultra programs and other such programs, and they're still trying it to prisoners of war, and it's just an interesting look at the movie from a wider perspective.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because you had the Stanford experiments, which I think was like 1970, where they had, for those of you who don't know, so a professor in Stanford got an idea where if you put people in natural power positions, what would happen? And so they went and they got several people from the community, and they designated half of them as prisoners and half of them as guards. And so the prisoners were then kidnapped. They knew they're part of the experiment and everything, but they were kidnapped, brought down to a basement, and treated like a prison. Their names were stripped from them. They were given numbers, and the guards had just about complete control when they eat, when they bathe, when they shower, and all this other kind of stuff. And within a day, you had the guards started torturing prisoners. They started denying them basic necessities, such as things like using the bathroom, clothing. And these were normal, regular, middle income level people that did not have a history of insanity or anything like that, just normal people, but put in that situation, having complete control over something, they dove into that. So it's almost like it's always been there in the brain, but society tells us to keep it under wraps. And it's like, what if that part of the brain was alarmed?
Well, the Stanford experiments, although interesting, they have been very heavily criticized for basically manipulating results. And there were similar experiments tried after that, which is strange why they would allow other experiments. But they didn't, when they brought people in for that experiment, they didn't actually try to assess the character traits of each participant before they went in and performed the way they did. So that it doesn't really give you an accurate reflection, because they tried it again with empathetic people. And what they did was they put heavily empathetic people in a room. And they had another team in another room. Again, very empathetic people. And they said, okay, you have to solve these puzzles. And as you're solving these puzzles, there's another team that's going to give you a beep to distract you so they can do it faster. And if they do it faster, then they win, basically. But the buttons didn't control anything. It was actually the people in the booth that controlled the sirens. And the louder, if they turned the dial up, it would give a stronger signal, basically. And the particular signal would actually damage people. And I think the maximum was 7.
Oh, I think you're referring to the Milgram experiment, right?
Was it the Milgram experiment?
Yeah, where they had increasing levels of shock, and because the psychologist or the experimenter was in the room with him, was wearing a white coat.
No,
it was
no.
Okay. So because that one where the you could actually turn it up to where the electrical shock would have been fatal to being.
No.
Okay.
This was a siren, and if you turn it up to 10, it would actually deafen someone. It never went above a 4, I think.
Interesting.
And yeah, it was an incredible achievement to actually see how empathetic people react to situations where you do have control over a subject and we're known to have more control over subjects that we can't see, and therefore we can't build a relationship with or any empathy with. But yet they never went above a 4, just to kind of jolt them into with the siren, to kind of distract them. So it wouldn't cause any harm, but and even with that, they only pressed it, each team only pressed it around 2 to 4 times, between 2 and 4 times.
Nice. Because in the Milgram experiment, they had increasing levels of shock. So like a level 1 would just be a shock, and the goal, basically the objective, was that the person would just administer the next level, regardless of hearing the cries of the individual being shocked, even though they couldn't see him. And so, whereas everybody was somewhat hesitant, everybody except for one person got to the maximum level, which, as far as they knew, would have been lethal. Yeah, that they were actually lethally shocking people because an authority figure in the room was telling them to do it. It was important to the experiment. We need this data. Please, just go continue on. Despite hearing the cries of the individual being shocked, supposedly all of them were able to, or you wouldn't say coerce, but all of them were able to dissociate themselves from the ramifications with the consequences and go straight up to the maximum level. Only one person refused to do it, and that was an old man. I don't remember, don't remember the details of him, but at one point I think it was like a 7. He just stopped. He was like, I can't do this anymore. No, this is not right. But everyone else straight on to what would have killed somebody. So yeah, it's creepy when you think of those respects of how we can be so easily influenced and how we are in a way influenced by the media that we take in every single day. And given that this is kind of like the mass media, I've always seen this kind of like mass media allegory, everybody taking the same thing, being infected a certain way, and a kind of allegory for how easily, I think, and this is what's crazy, this movie came out in 2007 or 2008, and so easily we see in 2020 how quickly the masses can be turned on a dime and move into one direction, even pushed to violence, simply by what they see in the media.
Not even what they see in the media, by one tweet on the internet.
By a tweet, yes. Yeah.
And that's what I was going to comment on earlier. You're talking about all these things. This came out in 2008. You're talking about MK Ultra. I mean, none of it really matters when you get everybody into a big group, because seriously, it was one tweet set a riot off at a government building, and it's like, you can have one person with that much power. It's terrifying. And coming, like, I'm more of a free thinker. I don't like to follow all these, I don't like to follow mass groups of people, because that's when mistakes are made, are in large groups, and you do something you're going to regret, or you get shot in the fucking face because, you don't think, like, these people aren't thinking. Their thought process isn't like, oh, that person's got a gun on me. The thought process is, as a whole, we're invincible, and it doesn't work that way. And they lost their minds at the Capitol.
See, I do take issue with people who look at the events such as the Capitol in isolation and say it was only one thing and it was only one event and it was this.
Right. I understand.
Human beings don't do anything in isolation. There is always pattern. patterns to our behavior. There is always a series of events that lead to the explosion. You can't have an explosion without the fuse. You can't have an explosion without the dynamite. You can't have an explosion without all of the little steps in between setting the match and, you know, the explosion itself. The explosion is the reaction to every little step that came before it, to when you decided to cause the explosion. And so the idea that one thing in isolation can have such a profound effect is a very difficult thing, unless it's shock and awe, unless it's so big that as a whole community or parts of the community, we are shocked into a way of thinking. And it's something I might talk about later. You can't really hypnotize someone. You can't really attract someone to do something or to perform in a certain way unless they're open to doing it. The events at the Capitol, what happened there was you had the leader of the free world not only justifying such acts and promoting such acts, but actually willing them to happen. So you had the most powerful person in the world saying it is right for you to feel this way. It is right for you to do whatever you think is necessary to do. That is that's a powerful thing.
So yeah, to think that I think the vast majority of people that took part, not that would, and I want to make it clear that Weekend Horror is neutral in regards to the events that took place. Everybody has their own opinions, and everybody is entitled to their opinions. But I think that if you look back at it, the vast majority of the people that were there, not all, but the vast majority, if you'd asked them 2 weeks earlier, if they would be engaged in this, or maybe a year earlier. Even go back before would they have engaged in that? Would they have done this? Would they have seen themselves in combat with a police officer, with a Capitol police officer? The answer probably would have been no. They probably would have said, well, I'm still angry, but you wouldn't suspect it. I think the vast majority have been like, no, I can't really see myself, throwing down and getting pepper sprayed by a Capitol police officer as I'm trying to break into the Capitol. And it just goes to show. And that was another thing we were touching on. And Krafty, you brilliantly brought it up, was our greatest strength is our interconnectivity, or is basically the infrastructure that binds us all together. The internet mostly, satellites, signal, basically the signals that we have that keep us all connected. I can call Irish Demon on the phone right now. I could talk to him. 50 years ago, it would have cost me a fortune to do it, and then 100 years ago, I would not have been able to. The fact that we can do this, we're all in Texas, Krafty's in Ireland, and then of course we have people all over the world that are currently watching what we're doing. So yes, we are connected in a way like never before. And as strong as it makes us, it really is our greatest weakness, which I think this film makes an excellent point of exploiting.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think, and just to touch back on it, the thing that was the horror aspect of, and I'm using the Capitol as a example, but the fact that, like you said, JL, like, you asked somebody 2 weeks before the thing if they're going to do that, probably not. And there was people that were in there that absolutely felt justified in doing what they were doing because of the people that, like you said, Krafty, that had this person in power tell them what to do. And a lot of people, free-thinking people are going to be like, well, that's not a great idea. We probably shouldn't do it that way. We come up with another solution. But what scares me about people in general is there was the group that felt justified, that went in, that had reached the end of their rope and snapped and did what they did. But then there was also a group of people there that were only there because it was going on and they were being opportunistic about it. They saw like, oh, everybody else is doing it. Even if I don't necessarily agree, I'm going to go be a part of the chaos. And there was
like
a group
of
people. Yeah. And there's a group of people that just, they follow that kind of chaos. They'll see it. They want to be a part of it. Even if they don't believe in what the people are doing. Wow, they're smashing shit. Let me do it. And that's what scares me about some people, is that people are very easily pushed into, there are some bad people in the world. And they will get into a situation where they can cause harm and get away with it because of an overshadowing situation. And then that's when you get into, you're talking about insanity. Like, yes, it's normal for people to react, and reach the end of their rope. But then there's also that group of people that are going to take advantage of the situation, and those people are scary. That situation gets very scary very fast, and it starts growing. And you can get into all the the Antifa stuff and whatever, and the stuff that's happened over the last year and a half or so. But there is a group of people that are just there to cause chaos, and those are the scary people that you've got to watch out for. We can all have a cause to stand behind, but if there's people in there pushing the wrong buttons and making things go south, like it's all for nothing, and then you just got chaos, and things can go south very quickly. And this movie did a very good job at showing like mass hysteria. You get the idea that bad things are happening around you, and if you don't do what you're supposed to, bad things are going to happen to you, and then everything's kind of controlled. And 2008. Think about where we've come from there, social media wise, technology wise, and this movie was not far off. I think it was ahead of its time almost.
I thought it was quite poignant that in the end, our main character, the gentleman, oh Lord, just the I don't want to forget his name. Was it Lewis?
Lewis.
It was like Lewis and like Ben.
I think it was
Ben.
It was Ben. Yeah, it was Ben who, Justin Wellborn's character. It was Ben who logicked his way through it.
Yeah.
So basically stared at the signal and immersed himself so deeply within it, and to the point that he was able to logic his way past it and realize it was all an illusion.
And
yes, and it was literally just, but it honestly felt tacked on. It felt like almost tacked on the other. It was like, well, how did Ben get through this? Well, he literally just he literally muscled through it and realized that what he was thinking didn't make sense, that it was illogical. And he was able to logic his way past this overriding signal. So he went from sane to insane and back to sane, but he still felt the impulse to do these terrible things. But he was able to ground himself by keeping this in the forefront of his mind. And that right there is just, that could have been such a stronger moment for the film, to be honest, but it felt very, very tactile. It's like, well, how did you do this? Oh, I did it this way. It's like, okay, back to the story. I'm like, no, more there. I want more.
Yeah, you could have dove into it, because you look at situations where you have like mass hysteria and people doing crazy things. One of the things I'm thinking as we're talking about this is things like Germany during World War II. Hitler convinced an entire country to murder 11 million people, 6 million Jews, 5 million others. And most people don't want to murder on that scale, but when the right you had Germany was bankrupt and World War I and all this other kind of stuff that led to how that event took place. But at the same time, you had people that were still resistant. I watched Valkyrie like a week ago, about one of the closest uprisings against Hitler. And it's like most people bought into it. Most people are like, this is the way it needs to be. And you had those free thinkers that are like, this isn't right. This isn't. That's why it made sense. And you're right. I wish they dove more into it, because you always have those group of people that will sit there and go, let me play devil's advocate a little bit, and then go, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing it. So it was a topic that, I wish they dove into it more.
I'd like to tell the audience that I was wrong.
I already looked it up.
I watched an extra movie this week, guys.
She wasn't in this one. I think
because the movie The Signal came out in 2014.
Yeah,
you're looking. The other Signal.
You're talking about the Lawrence Fishburne.
The Lawrence Fishburne one. Yeah, I almost watched it.
I almost watched that too, and I was like, wait, which one am I watching?
We're talking about Signals, not The Signal.
It wasn't half bad, because there was a Signals film, but the Signal with Lawrence Fishburne wasn't half bad. But I called that he wasn't human almost halfway through the film. I was like, okay, this cat's not real.
Spoiler alert.
This dude is either an alien or he's a fucking okay, great, he's a fucking he's a robot.
He's a robot.
Yeah, always a robot. So it brings us to our CTA, our call to action. Is we talked about technology and strange twists of people being robots. Is technology our weakness? This connectivity that we have, is technology our greatest strength, or is it our greatest weakness? Because it has been used against us.
Yes.
Can it be both?
So I think it can be both. Honestly, I think it's a tool, and then it's like a hammer, however you wield it.
I had this conversation with somebody actually yesterday about, because we've gone through a lot of stuff in the last couple of years, and it's like, man, as humans, we've been around. I can't give you an exact number of how many humans have lived and died, but like, I was like, so, you know, like, what's the point of life? And I was talking to my wife, and she's like, you know,
40,
procreation.
42. It's 42.
Huh? Yeah, like 42 billion
40.
people.
No, it's 42. That's the
the answer to life and everything. I should have known that. It's been my whole life has been 42.
Come on,
but
Douglas
but
Adams
like,
was
the point being is, what's the point? You know, we've been going on for so long now, and I think people try to find the point. We could have zero technology and survive as a human race if that's all we were trying to do. But I think people look for a purpose, and you know, long enough, and they want more answers, and they have to create technology to get those answers. And we can keep going. The technology has no limit. That's the crazy thing about it, is we could just keep this going forever and ever. But like, I think it has a lot to do with just human curiosity of like, what the hell are we doing here? Because it can't just be in my personal opinion, it's not just procreation. We're not here to just like recreate. There's got to be something else going on. So like, the only way to get answers to those questions is technology, but it can be very damaging to a society.
Yeah,
that is true.
I mean, the question is like, you're right. We're only limited by human beings' ability to imagine,
right,
when it comes to technology. And then the question that this whole movie poses is, well, yes, we can do it. We can evolve technology to have such a profound impact in our lives, which we have, because I think someone on a stream a while ago asked if you would rather, I think it was actually a Critical Cripple who does his unfathomable quiz thing, and he asked, would you rather get rid of your left hand, or the hand that you're not proficient in, or your mobile phone? And most people said, take the hand.
Oh God,
that's messed up, man.
That is incredible.
You talk about an absolute weakness in our armor. It's like there is. I think there's an argument to be said how our reliability, our incredible reliability on our absolute reliability on our absolute dependency on technology. I lost the fucking word. But our absolute dependency on technology, and how there have been times where I have left my phone somewhere, or I've left it at home, or I left it on the charger, or something like that. And I'll suddenly be in the middle of doing something. I don't even need my phone. Okay, and I will check it. And I'll be like, I'll move to just check it absentmindedly. It just becomes so habit. And then if I don't have it, there's that moment of panic.
Yeah. Do you know, I used to be terrible at keeping my mobile phone anywhere. I used to keep losing it on buses, because I take buses everywhere, until the phone was able to play music, or was able to play podcasts and audiobooks and stuff like that. Because then I knew I had my phone because my headphones were connected into it. That was the only way I knew I had my phone, because I didn't used to bother with it. And then, you know, the evolution of social media and the need to be involved, that you can't just I'm probably one of the last generations who remembers not even having a house phone. You know, there was a time we didn't have a house phone, and that was okay, and that ability to not be reachable was okay. Now, if someone tries to contact you and they can't contact you, you're automatically either ignoring them or dead. You know?
Yes, there's that very, very weird social stigma of it, that we can't even get past the fact that there's no context context to a text message, and that, you know, people will make snap judgments about what an individual means or their intentions are simply by the text message itself. But nowadays, you don't answer that phone, you don't even respond. Oh, they will write you off. I have been written off by people because I didn't get back to them timely enough, or I didn't get either Facebook or Twitter or even a text message on the phone.
But now you have the ability to see if someone has read your message.
Yes.
You know, and that is crazily invasive.
PhD Tony brings up good. Humanity's biggest weakness is an incapacity to rationally process data.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Unless we go really, really slow. with it. If we take our time, piece by piece, but we cannot do it like quickly, and we are more prone to committing hasty generalization fallacies and just coming to our own conclusions, that which confirms our our personal bias. I think our technology is a grand weakness that is ripe to be exploited. And someone, before we jump on to the next one, I do want to throw out there, something brought up something very interesting. There was a TED Talk that was done on this, that as our technology improves and we get, it gets faster, stronger, and better, more and more people gain access to it. So cell phones weren't always, everywhere. Cell phones were slow, kind of slow at the start, very, very expensive, but now everybody's got their hands on one. Now everybody on the planet can have a computer, essentially an almost supercomputer in their pocket at any given time, okay, with full connectivity to the entire planet. So that took a very short amount of time to get. But as our technology gets grander, and like the internet, very similar to the internet, more individuals who would truly be considered dangerous, those who have ASPD and with psychopathic tendencies or sociopathic tendencies, will have access to that technology, and will be able to utilize it for whatever dark deeds they intend to do. So I hate to use to quantify it as like bad people, but more dangerous people as the technology blooms, and more people are able to get their hands on, they're able to use the internet now in order to organize. They're able to use technology to further their agendas and to do it more quickly. So as our technology continues to skyrocket in the next 50 to 100 years, imagine the level of technology we'll have, and imagine the level of people that are really, really bad people will be able to do with that technology.
Although having said that, I'm still not giving up my phone.
Left-handed is then.
I have not learned my lesson at all.
So before we jump in, so Krafty Keelah, the signal. Scary? Not scary? Somewhat scary?
Not scary. I don't even know what to say. No, it wasn't scary. It was. I don't even know words. Words have not. It's like it's nearly. It's after 3 a.m. Fuck. It was very interesting. It was an interesting social experiment for me.
Terrific. All right. Well, we got good stuff on the way.
All right. Well, yeah, Alex, what do we have next?
Yes.
All right. Let's go to the actual Lin Shaye movie now.
Yeah.
It's been a weird week. All right. We got Room for Rent. Came out February 23rd, 2019. And as I said, this one starred... Actually, I'm sorry. I lost my page here. It was directed by somebody. Starring
Tommy Stovall.
Tommy Stovall. No, you're right. I got fucked up with the signal and I changed my window here. Got Lin Shaye, Oliver Rayon, Valeska Miller, Ryan Okoa? I'm going to go with Okoa. Linda Kushma, Casey Nicholas Price, and Tanya June. And this movie was actually, I didn't realize that it had come out so recently. I thought that was farther. But so this woman loses her husband. He has a slip and fall accident, and he dies. And she's left with a debt on a loan that they had, and pardon me. And so she sees in a magazine like turning your house into like a bed and breakfast, or renting out your rooms and stuff. And so this guy comes in, gets the room, Bob, and she grows more infatuated with him and starts to get really clingy, and things start to get kind of weird really fast.
Oh yeah.
And she roofies him, then it gets really weird, and so yeah, it takes this matriarchal, would that be the right word?
Yeah.
Figure, and turns it into something scary, and it was a really good. I like this movie. It was a good horror movie.
Oh, Lin Shaye can go zero to crazy in fucking 60 seconds, man.
She's crazy so well. That's the thing, is she plays sane so well, and then she plays crazy even better. And it's like, okay, like yeah, it gets weird in some parts, but yeah, it was a good one. I like this one. It was creepy.
Given your background, Krafty, I know this was an interesting one for you.
Oh, it was. It was definitely an interesting one. Because it was all about control. The sudden death of her husband gives her a new sense of control, gives Joyce a new sense of control, and she uses it. She uses it. She abuses it. It's incredible to see the transformation from the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, and there's. I don't really want to ruin the ending for anyone that hasn't seen it, and I know spoilers, fuck spoilers, whatever. But there's the closing scene and that mental image of what's behind that door is haunting. It's very haunting. I absolutely loved this movie. Absolutely loved it, 100%.
When you're talking about, because it doesn't slow down, and then you get towards the end and you're like, oh man, really? Like, oh god, uh-oh. And then she reads that letter from Sarah, I believe her name was.
Yep.
I was like, oh shit. Somebody help this woman.
Well, it actually goes through the stages of grief a little bit, which was interesting, and how grief can play a role in people's behavior, and the changing behavior that Joyce exhibits over the course of the movie, and that unhealthy obsession, the delusion that she creates in her mind. It's just incredible the way in which it's written, and again, it's all about consistency. It's all about the fluidity that even when she snaps, in the moments that she does snap, it's not out of character. The scene with the guy on the skateboard, in the alleyway, that I've heard of people who, after a tragedy or after a trauma, will go out and just be completely irrational or want to be dangerous, to feel like they're in control again, and she takes that control back in that alleyway and then completely freaks out, realizes what's happened, and she loses all that confidence that she has in that moment, in the moment of pure chaos, and she has control in the chaos, but then comes back to her former self, and it's just incredible to watch. I cannot rate it highly enough.
I like how you phrase it, that moment in the alleyway where at the absolute chaos is where she sees her control, because when she talks about her husband in the past, she didn't have that much control of the relationship.
No.
And it was almost like probably some kind of abuse. And then when she had that confrontation with the skateboarders, it was almost like it was something familiar to her. And it's like at that point, that's where she was able to stand up and take, because she was alone and she was trying to figure out what to do. And so she turned her house into bed and breakfast. But it was like almost like chaos. Because I pictured something like she probably had fights like this with her husband before he died. Yeah. And so it was just at that moment, it was like, no, this is familiar. This is where I feel comfortable. This is where I can take the control. And she totally charges him up.
Yeah, I mean, she pushes that newfound freedom that she has found to the absolute limits, in every sense of the word, and throughout the movie. And what the movie is actually greatest at is forcing the audience to feel awkward and anxious, because you don't know how she's going to react to these situations. You think you know. And then she dials it up a couple of notches, which is really interesting to watch. But it does make that the football scene, it just makes you feel awkward.
Yeah.
I tell you,
like the cringe.
I'll tell you one thing, because I'm a giant fan of Lin Shaye. I've been a huge fan of her. I think the first thing I ever saw her in was Kingpin with Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray, and she was she's absolutely hysterical. The woman has a gift for comedy like I've never seen. But ever since she started appearing in the Conjuring film, she's got an absolute gift for horror as well. And of course, she's played several really, really nutty characters since then. She can turn that on like a faucet, and it just runs beautifully. In this particular one, I will say, grief does terrible, terrible things to the mind. And throughout the film, I was so sympathetic with Lynn and with the character of Joyce. not because I sympathize with her relationship, the relationship that she had with her late husband after he dies, given the things that how he controlled her life and the extent of the time that they were together again, she's become utterly and completely dependent upon him. And from that point on, after his sudden death and the fact that he left her nothing, after the fact that she's got to pretty much stand on her own 2 feet immediately with absolutely no time for personal growth. She's a fish out of water. She's just kind of floating around in the world, just reacting to everything going around her. And of course, once you lose your support system, once you lose your ladder like that, man, she does some despicable things in this, but I ultimately felt absolutely terrible for her because she's got no rung to hang from. She's literally just responding to things because it's all she knows to do is just react on pure instinct. And when I remember what grief did to me, and grief, like I said, makes you do crazy things, and grief affects the mind in the most terrible of ways. I remember after my father passed away, it was about a year before my head was back on straight, and I was just not a great person to be around. Everybody would tell you, it's like, yeah, I was just abominable as I was trying to rationalize and try to reconcile all the kind of like the end of the relationship between me and my father. It just ended so abruptly. It wasn't long. There were things unsaid, there were things undone, and then all of a sudden, boom. When you're left floating like that, and then of course, I had my family, I had my mother, I had my brother, I had my friends, I had Angela, but this poor woman's got nobody, and she's immediately has to become not only independent but self-sufficient, just right off the bat. And
with the debt on top of her too.
With the debt on top of that she suddenly inherited, she had no idea about. So it's just absolutely, I was shocked it didn't go further than what she did to Bob.
Yeah.
That it didn't go even more extreme. But then again, there is the ominous ending where it's kind of like, I don't want to spoil that for those. I don't want to spoil it, but it does have a bit of an ominous ending. But I honestly, I wasn't like, this woman is insane. I was like, oh my God, she's mad. She's just mad with grief and mad at just kind of her situation, because all of a sudden it's like, she doesn't know what to do. She's almost in a state of panic. That's why everything is so big. Every reaction is so huge. Okay, home cooking, cooking this tenant meal. She's just met this person.
Well, you see, I'm going to challenge you on that, because yes, grief does incredible things. She becomes emotionally dependent and desperate. But the idea that she doesn't have control over what she's doing, she doesn't know what she's doing. Of course she does. And what's incredible is it plants in your mind that you don't know whether she is the grieving widow who's desperately swimming in ice cold water, for instance, or whether she's very cold and calculated. And the fact that she can flip so quickly. And one of the signs of this is the whole Bob issue with the son.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as Bob decides to kind of up and leave, this delusion, he kind of gets the idea of the delusion that she has enforced upon herself. The unrequited love. This is Bob. This is my boyfriend. He doesn't know he's my boyfriend, but he's my boyfriend because in my mind, that's what I've built it up as. But she deliberately emotionally manipulates him into staying by saying, I had a son. I just want someone in my life again. But we find out from the neighbor later on that she was pregnant, but her husband never allowed her to continue with that pregnancy.
Yep.
And it's the very, very quick thinking that she does of emotional manipulation of, I had a son.
The fact that she's able to use that so quickly to strike so fast.
She knows exactly. She is in control in that moment. And you have to kind of, it makes me, when I was watching it the second time, it made me think back on what she was doing. Was she in control that whole entire time? And was she manipulating events? And I just have to say, I love the lighting in it. I love the creative directions, because the whole skulking around and creating tension and creating deviousness, she's kind of skulking around the house in the back of the house. The lighting is fantastic in creating that kind of tension. But it makes you really question what part of this is a woman who has snapped. She has gone over the edge completely. And you really do get a sense of that in terms of the football game. But then you think, wait, She's after going out and paying to get this subscription specifically because he once mentioned football. Then she does this, and then she does this, and then she emotionally manipulates him into staying. And that's all of the signs of a toxic relationship. And that's a premeditated toxic relationship by the time she gets to talking about, quote unquote, her son, which she never had.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Sorry, we're just dealing with losing JL here.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
JL lost power, so he'll be back in a minute on it. So, but I mean, going back into it, right off the bat, you already had a toxic relationship with her and her husband, and with the state of grief that she's in, she's not in the full level head. We've seen in movies before people dealing with grief like Midsummer and Babadook, how grief can kind of push you through, and those focus on other aspects of grief. But coming in from maybe those were tactics and stuff like that was used on her by her husband.
Yes, she has become the toxic element in the relationship. But that's the thing, she's building up this relationship as the time is going on. That doesn't exist. It's not reciprocated at all at any point in the movie, except for he defends her, Bob defends her against the skateboarder who comes and attacks the house. That's the one time, and that was mainly because she's an elderly woman. These young kids shouldn't be attacking an elderly woman.
Other than that, there was no reciprocation. Exactly.
No,
it's not.
None.
There was no
all.
reason for her to believe that was an actual relationship.
But she was building up this delusion in her head, and not only just in her head, she was narrating it back to Sarah in the pen pal letters, in the old,
Right.
And I love the old school pen pal letters. But she was regurgitating her own little delusion on the page, so she could read back what she was writing. So it wasn't just. It was a very conscious thing that she was deceiving Sarah. And then when Sarah comes over, and of course they hit it off, she goes absolutely mental.
It's so.
Which I'm kind of curious. You'll have these people that, especially a lot with like celebrities, you'll have these people that will build up whole relationships, and off of a little something. You run into a celebrity and the celebrity says hi at one point, or you get an autograph at a con or something like that. And then these people go off the deep end, and they'll get charged, celebrities to get restraining orders and stuff like that. Not necessarily Bob being a celebrity, but you'll have these people that they're so desperate to cling on to something and then blow it up way out of proportion.
Oh yeah.
To the point, I mean, where it's toxic, it's unhealthy, it's creepy.
A lot of it has
dangerous.
To do. It's very dangerous. Mm-hmm. A lot of it has to do with that position of power thing we were talking about too earlier, where some people can get a taste for power and you very poorly. And she does that a lot in this, like you said, with saying like, "Oh, I had a son," like that kind of manipulative power that you just use. It's, I don't know. You say like she absolutely knows what's going on, like, and that's what's scary too, is people that do act like that. I have met a few that use that kind of manipulative wording to get what they want, and that's dangerous as well.
Mm-hmm. That pathological lying.
Yeah.
You do have to. This is what I love about the movie, is it forces you to ask of yourself, how far is it? How much of it is she is grieving, she is desperate, she is upset, she is not in her right mind, and how much of it is, was her husband really the aggressor? Did her husband really fall off the roof? How much of it is she aware of? How much she knows she's lying about A, B, C, and D. She can't run the risk of her friend coming back and talking to her neighbor again, so she kills the neighbor. So we actually see her kill on screen before Bob. And that, that dichotomy, you have to ask yourself, it forces you to ask, how much of this has been premeditated and how much is a reaction? And you never really know the answer. And what's scary is that closing scene. That closing scene where you're, And I love the cliffhanger. I was saying to JL earlier, I really want a sequel.
Right.
I really want to see what she's going to do next. And that's the weird thing, is that you almost have an obsession of what's going to happen next.
The obsession has gone farther than just the screen. Well, and that's like with the cliffhanger part, like you've seen where she came from, you've seen what she's now capable of, what she's gone through, and then like you're like, okay, I think I know what she's gonna do now, but we never find out. And that, okay, was I the only one when Bob went down? Because I just watched this, the big whack. I was like, ooh, out loud.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, that didn't feel good.
And I think that's what the beauty of this movie is that it introduces that conflict on a well-developed character. And we talk about with Lin Shaye and how she does an amazing performance in this film, because if it was just old lady running a bed and breakfast and these people show up, then it's like, oh, well, she's completely nuts. She's crazy. She's okay. She's just clear bad guy. It makes the movie very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
But the fact that you throw in, okay, this implies something happened beforehand, the death of her husband, it adds in that complexity. And that's what I feel like a lot of horror movies are missing. That extra step, that extra kind of like, was she just crazy the entire time? Was she abused? Was she abuser? What happened? And it just adds that extra depth.
It's the hint at the backstory. It doesn't go fully into the backstory, which again allows the viewer to make up their own assumptions. Absolutely, I love that. I love that. And the other thing is, we're going back to the start of it here. She can't escape her husband, even in his death. Even in his death, he leaves her thousands of dollars in debt. She can't get away from him. And the only way she can actually finally gain her independence is by running the B&B, is transforming her home and allowing strangers to come into her home. And she overcompensates a little bit, because it could have been, if the narrative is that her husband was abusive or controlling, when Sarah and her husband first enter the scene, she's over attentive, because that's probably how her husband wanted her to be, or molded her to be. That as soon as he enters the house at all, she has to be there with his tea. She has to be there with food, and she almost becomes she becomes obsessed with making sure they're happy, because she's never been in this role before. She doesn't know what limits are.
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. Because she doesn't. That's what she's programmed. She doesn't know what else to do. She doesn't. And we think in terms of mental mind state. People will do insane things for grief, and people do insane things when they desperately need money. And she's put in a situation of both.
Yeah.
But right off the bat, she reverts back to her programming.
Of course.
As all humans do.
Yes.
That's questionable.
As a lot of humans do. It's again, this goes back to the just the human nature, and that's horror in itself, because it's just so unpredictable, and you put somebody under the stress and they come out in a dangerous way, and it's like, it makes a normal person scary, and that's what this movie, it makes you uncomfortable. Like you said, it's cringy at some points. It's almost like uncomfortable to watch the way, which is good acting, and on top of it, it's crazy to see humans act so out of character, but then so normal, and then so out of character, and it's just back and forth, and I don't know. It was very uncomfortable for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was.
Right.
The scene in the skate park, I think, was the most uncomfortable for me, because she's just standing there like staring at the kids on their skateboards, and she does look like a creeper.
You said something about sulking around the house and stuff, and it brought up a scene from, I don't know if you've seen it, Krafty, but Eugene, from the new It 2.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't watched it. Not that I don't want to, I just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, I've already seen It Chapter 2.
Okay, It Chapter 2, there's a scene where so in It Chapter 2 they're all the kids, but they're grown up, and so it comes to it's the girls talking to the grandma in the grandma's house because it's their dad's old house or whatever. And
I think I know the scene you're talking about.
and then the grandma like goes to like get tea or whatever, and then she's like
Yeah.
standing in the background. Look, oh my god, dude, that it freaked me out. I had to like look behind me.
Yeah, where and she's all it starts coming towards the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, that whole scene is just insane. But yeah, it's that like old lady, totally normal old lady, and then all of a sudden it's like just the scariest situation you could be in. That was rough.
Yeah, that's just
But yeah, Krafty, it's really well done. I was a huge fan of the It films.
I've seen the original. I loved the original.
I was really reluctant to watch the new ones because I didn't want them to ruin the original for me, but they did not. And the second one was even good. So
I like remakes. I prefer the originals for most of it, but the remakes, you have to look at them as an individual piece of work.
Right, exactly.
Agreed.
Especially when it's 20-something years later.
Few exceptions to that.
We have another remake later on that we're talking about.
Some movies just need to stay.
Yeah, just keep it like that. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to ask the audience on this one. What is your favorite Lin Shaye film? She did a whole bunch of them. She's now labeled as a scream queen. As we talked about, Kingpin. That wasn't really a horror movie. She's the landlady in that one. That was a good one.
That was a funny movie.
She was most recently, I believe, in The Grudge, the new Grudge. Did that come out yet? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, The Grudge came out early last year.
Yeah, I remember she was going to be in that one. I haven't seen that one yet. Have you seen that one, Eugene?
No, I haven't seen the new one.
I don't know. That's another one that I'm afraid because it might ruin the first one.
Well, because like I had some friends that saw it and they all said it was bad, so it's kind of like, okay.
I was worried.
Yeah, it's
about
like I really like The Grudge with the Sarah Michelle Gellar one. I was like, well, I don't understand why you need to remake a film that came out 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's the same with the Spider-Man ones. Although I like the new Spider-Man. It's one of those, like you're taking a franchise that's literally only after airing in very, very recent memory. Why the fuck? Doesn't make sense. Leave it a bit. Allow it to age and then look at it again. But yeah,
just go back and watch the original. Apparently,
Yeah, just go watch the original. If you miss Spider-Man, go watch the original.
although I will say I liked Homecoming.
yeah.
I did like him.
That was a good one.
Yeah, I do like Tom Holland though. I like him a lot.
But so Lin Shaye, she was in a TV show that I watched too, Penny Dreadful. The City of Angels. She was Dottie in that, and she was in Insidious. And Eugene, help me out. What was the?
Oh, she was in a Paranormal Activity one, like Paranormal Activity.
That's right.
She was one of the teachers in the original Nightmare on Elm Street. Because I was wondering when I was watching it the first time, I was like, how do I know her face? It hasn't really changed that much.
That would have been
how
80s, right?
Yeah. She hasn't changed that much.
No,
she really hasn't. And then she was also in.
But I was wondering how I knew her face. And
yeah, because it's one of those. I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it. I didn't recognize her when I saw it.
now it's like you're going to be looking for her the whole time. There she is. You start wondering.
She was always in the background. There's several. Bill Nighy is in so much. He's always one of those B-list actors, and yet he's in everything, and yet he's fucking brilliant.
Yeah, I don't know. That absolutely. I don't know. Yes, let us know. You said Nightmare on Elm Street, Daryl.
Toby Jones is another one. Toby Jones is in so much. You barely even know when he's there. It's like, oh, he's been in loads, do you know?
Oh yeah, definitely.
As a background character.
JL, welcome back.
Hey,
I was
JL.
about to be like, Eugene, skip his movie. He's dead to us now.
I actually pulled notes for our next film.
I was listening on the phone, so that's why I was able to still message the board. And thank you for not
telling me. I
timing.
guess the Ouija sequel is my favorite Lin Shaye film.
Thank you for not timing me out, Jessica G. I do appreciate that. And no, City of Angels is not a jail Warren documentary.
Yeah, you did it yourself. You timed yourself out by losing power. He took himself off the stream, not even just out of the chat, off the stream completely.
Fuck these guys.
I tell you that's impressive.
Texas has its own grid, but it can't even keep up with Texas.
This is very, very true.
Texas is too strong for Texas.
We want to secede as a nation. We were bringing power in from other states. Like, you can't secede and then ask the neighbors for help. Like, it doesn't work.
We're better than you, but can you help us?
Can you send us over some electricity, please?
Do you know what I find really, really funny? Is it's the one movie where JL really wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, it was the one that I'm scheduled to talk about.
It was Ghosts.
So we're pretty much in between, right? We're good.
Yeah, we did the CTA already.
Yeah, we were waiting on favorite Lin Shaye films.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, so yeah, we are good for mine. Awesome. Okay, well, I guess I'll pick it up. They're waiting on me. Yes, they're waiting.
We were distracted.
Sorry, I'm pulling up the fucking pulling up the shit, man. I've got everything. We're good to go.
I was distracted by you being timed out by Jess.
Well, that's the ththing. She can time out Joe Warren, but she can't time out Weekend Horror. And I'm the one putting those.
She'll find a way. She'll find a way. You know she will.
All right. Yeah. So while the chat is discussing their favorite, my favorite Lin Shaye film is not a horror film. It's actually the comedy Kingpin. I thought she was absolutely brilliant in that one. Her and Woody as the disgusting landlady of Woody Harrelson's character. Blah, 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 blah. She's absolutely, that girl is a riot. But she was so good in the Conjuring series.
The Conjuring.
It's such a different take because she's big on. I mean, she's huge in comedy. Her as a comedic actress, she's legendary. But going in that direction was just that catapulted her to Scream Queen status. So yes, she is one of the newest Scream Queens. She is absolutely amazing. And then PhD Tony says, "You're not supposed to be pulling your shit up, Weekend Horror. You're doing it wrong." I'm doing it right, PhD Tony. I don't want people thinking I went to the school of
Directed by that one guy, starring that group of people.
And that was shot in that one place.
One company.
Yes.
What you're talking about.
Well, okay, so let's jump on to our next film. And I've been really excited about this one. And of course, I also wanted to get Krafty's take on this one. Released February 24th, 2017. We have the horror film, the psychological horror film, Get Out. I've been so looking forward to talking about this one. Directed by Jordan Peele, written by Jordan Peele, and starring Daniel Kaluuya, Allison Williams, Bradley Whitford, Caleb Landry Jones, Stephen Root, and Catherine Keener. A epic cast. And how to sum this one up for those who haven't seen it without spoiling it. Young black man is brought by his white girlfriend to meet her family and slowly uncovers a conspiracy, an insidious conspiracy amongst the kind of group of people that her family associates with that will imply dire consequences for him. I think it's about as far as I can go without giving too much away because the reveal on this film is absolutely insane.
Oh yeah.
Considering we're actually going to go into detail and talk about it, Was that really necessary to hold
Well,
back?
I know. Well, the things that we're gonna touch on, like the writing and the casting, obviously, and of course, how this film I think is an excellent example as for we always talk about horror films being, or the horror genre being, a barometer for the anxieties of society, a reflection of that which makes us afraid, or the things that are constantly on the back of our minds. Everything from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956, being kind of allegorical to McCarthyism and the Red Scare at the time, and even Night of the Living Dead. Frankenstein back in the 1930s, that role terrified people because electricity was becoming the new big thing, and people began to understand the human body works on electricity. So combine the two, we can reanimate the dead, and that really scared people. Well, in this one in particular, Jordan Peele's work with it and the fact that he changed it before its release goes to show that it is a reflection of what is going on in our world today. But yes, I was excited to give this one to you, Krafty. So I don't know. I didn't know. I'm pretty sure you hadn't seen it before, correct?
I had.
Okay, so was this one of the ones you had? It was.
Yeah, this is the only one that I had seen before. I went to see it when it first came out.
Okay, so on the refresher course, what did you think?
There was a lot more layers than I remember. I absolutely loved this movie. Everything, like, they take cultural appropriation to the next level, and
yeah.
It's like we'll get into it in a little while, but yeah, the extent of it, where she's involved as well. That the most devastating line in the entire film is when he's looking for the keys and he's asking her for the keys, and he says she flashes the keys and she says, I can't give you the keys, right, babe? She says it like stone faced, very calm, and that kind of psychopathy. It was done so well. Like this is beyond just cultural appropriation. This is bodily colonization. Literally. It's scary. It is actually scary.
It really is. And this is the beauty of the movie. It was the fact that it was brilliant writing. It was able to showcase things in society that have been hinted at with other movies, but really puts it on the forefront. And then the cast here is impeccable.
Yeah.
I mean, just the perfect casting. When you have Daniel sitting in a chair and talking about the loss of his mom, and then it's just sinking to the floor. That moment, and I mean, just the camera does a slow dolly in. You see the tears start coming out of his eyes, and it hooks you. Every single person in this film does an amazing job.
Well, what I'll say about that, it's proof that when artists are really great at what they do, all they need to do is keep it simple.
Yeah.
Because that whole scene that you're describing was so simple. The hypnosis anchor right through to the sunken place. It was just done perfectly. The lighting, the camera angles, and it was just so simple. There was nothing added to it. They didn't need to add anything to it.
And you're right, because the movie, it doesn't feel like a big budget. It doesn't feel like it's on this huge grand scale, because it mostly takes place out just a good-sized house out in the woods, but it hits everything it does. It's the talent level. I watched Judas and the Black Messiah last night, which actually stars Daniel and Lakeith Stanfield, who also played the caretaker on the grounds in Get Out also. And watching Get Out and watching Judas and Black Messiah, you can see their abilities.
Yeah.
On it, and just straightforward how talented they are.
I think Daniel Kaluuya was cast off of his performance in Black Mirror, which it was in the first season, the episode 15 million credits, and he was outstanding in that. That was the
first episode that I ever saw that show, and that's what got me hooked on the series.
He was so good.
Was so good.
Just knocked me out of the park.
And Get Out, I can't get the scene with the groundskeeper running at him and then taking a hard right turn.
Yeah.
It was like it was kind of an instant, it wasn't a big huge scene, but just like the look on his, I was like, move, dude, move.
It's a definitely a new take on the jump scare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
And I was,
I know I think the camera angles alone on that, it was the lighting and the camera angles, now that you mentioned it, that made that scene so stuck in my head. It was just the way that they shot it.
Simple, so simple.
Mm-hmm.
And I think going back to the casting, obviously Daniel was an excellent casting choice. I mean, Jordan cast him off of just simply that episode of Black Mirror alone. But then other individuals, Bradley Whitford and Catherine Keener, and you consider the roles that they've had before, quintessential, typically what we say, good guy roles that you don't see them typically as villains or villains of the piece, especially not subversive villains like these were here. They have the horror of these individuals, what they're doing, run so deeply that they could walk around in normal everyday society. You never would suspect a thing. And I thought, especially of Rose. Rose terrified me the most.
Mm-hmm.
And there were little nuances to it. Number one, because until this movie came along, she was Wendy in Peter Pan Live.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's who she was, just the Wendy darling. And I was kind of like, oh, okay, great. Well, someone's grown up and has gone to the deep end. It was quite dark. How she connected with that role, and she was able to flip the switch between absolutely engaging. Because I always remember that someone posted up a meme that took a picture of from the cover of the DVD, from the poster, of Rose looking at Daniel and like smiling at him, just beaming this huge smile at him. And someone said, I want someone to look at me like this girl looks at this guy. And then someone responded, have you seen this fucking movie?
No, you don't.
Say again.
The betrayal of the trust. He knows
exactly
what's going on, and she is his only connection, and he is so emotionally invested in her, that it's just the switch when she switches. It's just such a devastating betrayal of trust.
The nuance in her face when she's on that stairwell, and he realized that it was never that for him it was love, but for her she was bait. And that's what she was. And
you see it again in the closing scene where he has his hands around her throat and she's smiling.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That deviousness, it's unnerving, it's unsettling, because she could be anyone. She was a normal person. Now, having said that, there are little moments with Rose, the fake signal virtuing with the cop, and with her parents, really. Then it turns to gaslighting as soon as he has an issue, like the phone charger. His phone keeps being taken off charge. She gaslights him about that. So for someone who is signal virtuing the whole way through the movie, she just turns, and it's an interesting turn, and it's kind of foreshadowing what she's about to do.
Well, because if you go and you look at the system that they have in place, so she goes and she gets black guys, brings them back, and then they perform the surgery and all sorts of kind of stuff. She is the one that does the majority of the work, because she's the one that goes out. She goes out, finds them, dates them, sleeps with them to establish a relationship, to come back. I mean, the parents just meet him just then on the spot. So sure, they can do the medical stuff, but they just meet him. All right, and we need to hypnotize. Boom, we take care of it. She's the one that has to truly be disconnected to get to the point where you can fake and sleep with somebody just to lure them with no emotional connection at all.
Yeah. And there is a lot of foreshadowing in the movie, because in the opening scene there is a black man walking around suburbia, white suburbia, and he's lost and he's confused. And what's great about that scene is you have to contrast it then with the mental maze of Chris, trying to navigate his way through this initial gathering of people who are negrophiliacs, and they are obsessed with black culture. And the problem with negrophilia is, and it's not necrophilia, by the way, negrophilia is an actual thing. It's not about understanding or appreciating black culture. It is actually about using blackness and black stereotypes to kind of satisfy your own desires based on those stereotypes. So it takes that to a new extreme, which we haven't really seen on film before.
And you're right. Yeah, and you're right about that. And one of the things that really this film brings up in dealing with Black culture from a Black man's perspective, because I've dated Caucasian women, and I've had, when I was watching Get Out, I had those exact same conversations before.
Yeah.
Like multiple times, or parents talking about how, oh, well, we're accepting of you. It's cool. We're not racist. And then you do the polite, oh, well, I appreciate it. Or you do or some people are like, oh, why don't you stay up? Say something. Well, it's not worth the effort. It's not worth getting all up in arms about it. And it's just, that part of the movie was so relatable. And I don't want to go too much into like the racism conversation, all this other kind of stuff. But when I was growing up, I had to be raised by a certain set of rules that you had to abide by, such as like dealing with the police. I've been asked for my ID when I haven't done anything wrong when it's passenger seat of a car. I've been there. I've done that before. I wasn't doing anything wrong. No one got in trouble or anything like that. But yeah, I've been harassed by the police before. And so it dove into really put in the forefront a lot of things that we've experienced in the past that we just haven't said anything yet.
Yeah. What's interesting is I've just finished listening back again, because I read this book when it came out. I just finished listening to it on audiobooks today. Trevor Noah has a book called Born a Crime, where he's actually discussing things like that. And what was remarkable watching this film back after listening to that book was this idea of overperforming racial acceptance. You know, the Obama third term and trying to up the ante of we're not racist. And it's a constant reminder of acceptance in order to excuse the real racism that's coming down the line. You know, we love you so much that this racism is fine because we accept you, because we love your culture. No, that's not what you're doing.
It's an extreme overcorrection.
Yeah.
That in itself is racist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's actually, and it serves to alienate every time they try to reassure Chris that they're not racist. They're actually alienating him further.
You're putting a label on something that doesn't need to be labeled.
Yes.
Exactly, because you keep pointing out, it's like it doesn't have to be there. You don't have to say something, but the fact that you actually keep pointing it out, and it makes you feel different. Like I've had people come up to me and go like, "Oh, well, I generally don't like Black people, but you're okay. You're cool."
Oh my God.
I've legit. I mean, that's not like a one-time occurrence. I've had that many times throughout my life, and it's like, okay, you know, I'm not gonna try to
say like,
yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons why this film, Jordan Peele, because originally before the film released, it did not have the ending that it had. In fact, the racial aspects of the film were really, really were much more reduced than what we saw. Peele really played his cards to the vest on the first iteration of the film. But after the events, 2017, I believe it was after the events of Ferguson, all of a sudden the conversation changed. And then, as Peele's own words, the conversation became more woke, and that inspired him to go full glory and be like, you know what, let's just throw this down. Let's put all the cards on the table. We're going to make this movie this way. And he he adjusted the film to reflect that. And that is where we see why this film was a perfect example of how, because the film literally changed to reflect what was going on in our society, and it being a legit straight horror film. It fucked up a lot of people in a lot of different ways, on both sides. I mean, I actually at certain points I actually find this film difficult to talk about, other than the horror aspects, like the cinematography or the visual imagery, obviously of the sunken place, and obviously what they're doing to people and the loss of bodily autonomy and brainwashing and all this other crap is all very, very scary. But
that fucking skeleton deer, man.
That's deer.
Jesus.
The poor deer.
But yeah, it was a tough film and forces you to look at things especially from this aspect when we can connect with it so deeply from obviously from a fearful angle, because it speaks to you about those levels, the loss of identity, the loss of self in the face of something grander. Even and especially worse, made all the more terrifying when the veneer of that thing, has a smile and a handshake.
Yeah. I mean, there's three times where the idea of stereotypes are really genuinely challenged, and that is one of them is in the language. There's double consciousness. Chris is fighting with double consciousness. He is an American, but he is the Negro. He is the black boyfriend, and who's trying to be nice to everyone. So there's that kind of the dichotomy of how far are you willing to be nice to people in order not to make trouble when trouble is already coming your way. The second one is really, really interesting. And I'm amazed they got away with this. When he is tied up to the chair, he picks the cotton out of the side of the chair after, using his nails to scrub. He uses cotton, which is traditionally associated with slavery.
Yeah.
Audre Lorde's poem said, the master's tool will never dismantle the master's house, and yet he uses what's traditionally associated with slavery as a weapon to protect himself and to get out of the situation that he's in. And the third one came with the ending and the police car, which for a black man kind of hovering over a white woman who's injured usually kind of means trouble for the black man. And they kind of challenge the stereotypes there of what's going to happen next, which I'm not going to tell people what happens next. You have to watch the movie.
It appears there's a lot of people in the chat who actually haven't seen it. It's a brilliant, brilliant film. I could honestly say that garden party scene was so disconcerting. That was next level creepy, and I just that was and of all the violence and all the craziness that goes down this way, the social scene where they're out in front of and everybody's meeting everybody and they're introducing Chris is being introduced around. It was just like so excruciating
awkward.
Awkward was the word, but in a really, really bad way. Just disturbing. It was disturbing. I will say
very
that.
much so.
Absolutely.
And see, it's interesting, like listening to y'all talk about that, and it's like it felt normal.
Oh my god!
That was, and see, like that's a twisted thing. Was like I get the uneasiness that the film is trying to create, but it's just, and like to me, it's just I have a different take on the film, and it's because I've been there. I've been to the country club. I've gone to rich parties and I'm the only black guy there, and you're introduced meeting people and you're just like, you're trying to have fun, but it's just real awkward and you feel real out of place, but you don't want to seem like you're out of place. And so the movie was just so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucked up because it's like, that's just how our society has been tuned, and it's stupid because it's, stuff that I don't, like you said, you got a different take on the movie. You come from a different place. You come from the other side. Obviously, skin tone, it plays a lot into this conversation, and that's just like it was risky. I like the movie because it makes it awkward. It makes you look at that situation. It makes you like actually look that situation in the face, because I can't even. It's hard to even say anything without sounding like that guy, And it's like I just disagree with all of this segregation, and then you got it, but people just live that way normally and they think that way, and then movies like this, especially at the time that it was dropped, like you said, JL, they changed the end of the movie to kind of reflect what was going on, and things progressed from there, and you actually have to sit and you got to watch this movie. You got to face these things, and it was cinematically fantastic movie. The fact that you had to sit and think about it, and you had to face yourself in that own movie, like from both sides, like that's awesome that they could drop this. And Krafty, you said they got away with some stuff that was kind of surprising, and they did. And so it was a taboo movie that they were being really risky with, and it turned out to be a really good movie in both a societal way, but also like the horror genre, the horror aspect of it was fantastic as well.
I couldn't remember a horror film that utilized or that basically took a kind of image of real world events, of real world topics like this, and used those to prime the audience for the horror that was coming, for the legitimate, like kind of sci-fi style horror that was on its way. That whoever was in there watching it, even through the first half hour of the film, you're just left with this very, very disorienting feeling, or a very disquieting feeling. But you're basically watching any story on any given day here in America. And that was the most like the one thing that Eugene just said to me, and it all just came back, was that he was watching the garden party scene, and it felt familiar, and it felt natural, it felt normal, it felt familiar, and that is fucking crazy to me, because I watched that thing and I was literally squirming in my seat, because I was just like and then of course obviously we're gonna have different takeaways on this, but I thought obviously Jordan Peele's brilliant writing. When it came down to this, his awareness of both sides of whatever argument may exist, or both sides of the issue itself, was just, now you wouldn't expect it from the guy who did Key and Peele. I will say that honestly, you really wouldn't expect that. You know, the guy who was the possessed church lady in church next to Key and Mike, or next to Key, and it was like, that's the guy who came up with this. So yeah, I was one of the greatest horror films, I think, of the last 10 years.
It absolutely. And the one thing I actually really like about it is a lot of these films that bring out racial issues, they're kind of anti-Caucasian people or anti-other race. This didn't feel that. It just wasn't like all white people are bad feel to it. It's like, no, you have this small group of people who are fucked up, but the whole takeaway was we just try to be on the equal plane, and that's one of the things I really enjoyed about the movie.
So wild. You know, it brings us to I gotta ask, and some people brought it up in the live chat, but I do want to ask the audience, our CTA, Jordan Peele, 2 major films to his name. We got Get Out and we've got Us. Both great films, but a lot of people were divided as to which one was better. So let us know in the chat or down in the comments below, or at weekendhorror@gmail.com. Send Alex an email. He likes to read those. What was your favorite? Did you prefer his first effort, Get Out, or did you prefer the follow-up, Us? Which one did you like better? So definitely want to hear what the live chat has to say. Oh man. And because I friggin' had my power outage, let's jump to our last one. So Krafty. Real quick. So, I didn't get to ask you. Room for Rent. Scary, not scary?
Not scary, but very intriguing. And I still want a sequel.
Okay. And Get Out.
Absolutely loved it. There was a few really good jump scares, like the maid passing by him just before the hypnosis scene. He's going out the back, and just the maid just pops by him, like just lurking in the back. That was brilliantly done. It wasn't as such scary. There were scary elements and scary moments, or surprising moments, but I think it was more thriller than horror for me.
Okay, excellent. All right, well, Eugene's got our final one, so take us home, dude.
All right, for our last film, we have The Crazies, the remake that was released February 26, 2010. And it was directed by Breck Eisner, and it stars Timothy Olyphant, Rahida Michelle, Joe Anderson, and Danielle Panabaker. I got that right.
Yes, you did. Well, Timothy Olyphant and Rhoda Mitchell.
Okay. It was close.
And at least you got Joe Anderson.
So yeah, I got one. That's fine. And so basically, what you end up having is you have this toxin that gets released into the town, this small town, and all these people start going super crazy and go around, start killing people and freaking out and all this other kind of stuff. And you got the sheriff, played by Timothy Olyphant, and his small group that try to survive and get out of the town. And shit gets real.
And shit gets crazy.
I dug one, especially as a remake. Now I don't know, Crafty, if you'd ever seen the original Romero one, 1973, I think it was, or 76. But this was the first time for you, right?
Yeah. It was indeed.
And how did you feel about it?
And let us know.
supposed to speak now. It's 4 a.m. Yeah, it was good. Like there were certain elements that I didn't like. It felt very, very low budget. But it was a good story. It was a good story. And they again, they did well to kind of give them backstories and make them three-dimensional. Even the Hicks, that you see going around and enjoying killing the zombified people. But this took on a different tack because a lot of the violence was shown on screen, and there is one scene in particular where they're in the makeshift hospital, and the women are strapped to the beds, the gurneys, and this guy just walks in with the pitchfork, and it's amazing because you have to see, like, if it was done off screen, it wouldn't have the effect, the psychological effect, because you need to feel the fear, because up until that point, it wasn't really the fear that they were manifesting, the fear that they were showing. It didn't really seem real. It was just kind of there, but not. And it wasn't until that moment where you see the man with the guy with the pitchfork and shove it into a patient who is making noise that you really feel the fear that they're now going to have to experience, and all the panic that's been rushing up and leading up to this. This is why people are being evacuated. This is why families are being separated, which is just awful to watch. It did feel a bit rushed, mainly because I think the time that they had to tell this whole story, and it kind of gives it them and us kind of feel, big government, small town. That's what I found very interesting. They just, did what a plane went missing, and there you go. They don't give a shit. It's only a small town, and now they can use it as well, we know what this can do.
We can gather data from this situation.
They are lab rats. They become lab rats.
It's almost like the government just doesn't fucking care about the people. It's weird.
No, say it's not. Say it ain't so.
Where have I seen this before? Virus. Government doesn't give a shit if people die. Oh yeah. Well, I will say though, this being in Iowa, because I will put my fucking hate for Iowa out on the world. It is the second worst state next to North Dakota. It's a terrible fucking place. I grew up in the Midwest.
You mean South of Canada?
Yeah, South of Canada. I used to live in fucking South Canada. I used to live in the Midwest, and I fucking hate Iowa. Like, I can't stand the state. There's nothing there. It's just, I've never had a good experience. That's not true. I went to a couple of concerts there with my wife that were absolute blast because they were in the middle of fucking nowhere in like the downstairs venue where we got to get shit-faced, and that was fun. But outside of that, the state is just, it's full of hicks. Just like you're talking about, Krafty. It's not even far off. There would be a bunch of hicks there running around shooting the crazy people and laughing while they were doing it, and that's Iowa for you. And
the hunting scene. Yeah, the guys in the truck. That was fucked up.
Yeah, but no, that's how it would be. That's how Iowa would be. It's terrible. I don't know. But yeah, no, just the fact that this was like this Midwest. I remember watching it the first time. I'm like, yep, nope, that's Iowa. Like, that shit would happen there. And it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't surprise me if some shit like that has already happened in Iowa.
I think best displayed by that scene when the sheriff is trying to it starts here, like here was the plane, then they're both looking at him and his deputy, and it was like, and of course and then it flows into this screen. Hey man, you remember that monster catfish that I caught? That was it, dude. We're talking about something serious here. So, but I thought Joe Anderson was absolutely brilliant.
Oh man, I'm glad to be in the South now, even though it's frozen.
Frozen South. That's fucking crazy. But yeah, definitely. I dug the trope, and it was a good carryover from this being a remake. It was good carryover from the original. The idea of that pesky, shady government that's always looking over your shoulder, always, up to nefarious deeds. Given the time that, it was 1970s when Romero directed the original, the things that were going on that the government was involved in, what the CIA was involved in, what the FBI was involved in, their effects on the social platform, their effects, the clandestine operations conducted here in America. There was many, many reasons, obviously, and of course, Korea, and we're fresh off Korea, fresh off Nam, right after Korea. So there was a lot of anti-government or antitrust of the government. A lot of, there was no faith there. And I think this one exemplified that. In Romero's original Crazies, the government was portrayed much more in a villainous nature. Whereas in this one, I felt that the government was a little bit more reactionary, and the reaction is exactly what we'd expect the governments to be, as blasé and bureaucratic as humanly possible. As evidenced by Glenn Morshower, who has a small role as the agent who gets shot, after they crash his car and everything. Glenn Morshower is actually a good friend of mine. But it was a big difference in there.
Name dropping. That's it.
I would name drop a little bit, but Glenn Morshower's been in everything. But he lives here in Texas, and I went to KD, and having gone to KD, I've met Glenn on many, many occasions. He's a very, very cool dude. And anyhow, I liked the focus more on the characters. That the like Krafty was saying, that the characters were much more fleshed out and much more in depth than they were in the original. Because the original one, with the focus was what the virus was doing to people, and the government being the shady, creepy thing. But I love the big bad government as a trope, because it's something I think virtually everybody at any given point, whether you hate paying taxes or you hate what the government's done in the past, everybody's got a gripe with the government itself. And I think everybody can hang their hat on that trope, which is why I think it's so popular. Because it's always great to see the government show up and just be either completely and totally inept, as we expect them to be, or be completely totally nefarious, as we expect them to be.
As we also expect them to be.
They're also kind of.
Because the thing is, we all know. The government will take us, any individual, out in a heartbeat if it means retaining power. We all literally know that.
Well, it's not.
And so, if you get a virus that comes out, the government will probably make some half-hearted effort to try to help people, and then just nuke the town.
It's the lack of accountability at all. It's this overwhelming thing of, well, we can do whatever we want, and there's nobody being held accountable for just nuking a town.
The fact that they gunned them down in the truck. Okay, the people, because there were particular people with wristbands. They were given wristbands, and they were sequestered over another area to keep them from getting infected. And then all those people were gunned down anyway.
Yeah,
that was just that was fucked up. But also kind of I was gunned down and burned, and it was just that was just it was extremely on the nose. But they didn't really leave anything to the imagination there. They were very in your face about, this is what we're going to do. And that hospital setup that they had, and the fact that they just abandoned it so quickly, so easily. The alarms hit,
that was disturbing too, to actually see them just abandon whoever was left in that hospital to whatever was lurking outside. Or
the complete disregard for her pregnancy.
Yeah.
One of the things, running a fever. She's running a little hot because she is pregnant. It's a taxing event on the immune system. Of course she's going to run hot. Nope, gas her. Doesn't matter what's in the gas. That we got this thing to do. Fuck your pregnancy. So the coldness of it, the cold pragmatism of the government's response to this, and that these people's lives were completely and totally destroyed. And then, of course, no accountability at the end.
Put it that way, man. The government sounds kind of shitty.
It kind of felt like there was too many endings too, because they get out onto the road, and it could have ended there, and then they get to the diner, and it could have ended there, and then they get in the truck, but you have to have the nuke. I think
Damn.
It just showcases the point, because even in the military, when you get above a certain rank, we start getting to ranks like majors and colonels and generals and stuff like that. It becomes just as political as anybody in Congress, So you put some colonel or some general in charge of an operation like that, they only care about the success, because if they fail, they'll basically get forced out of the military. And so they have to succeed if they want to continue and get promoted. So they jump at the chance to get that because they know they get the promotion, and then they'll just kill anybody that they need to make sure the operation's a success. Just think about themselves the entire time.
Yeah.
Crazy. I do like that.
Like real life horror things.
Yeah, that's fine.
I do like how Krafty jumped on that, was the idea of the David versus Goliath concept, the small man versus the small everyman versus the big entity that seems impossible to take down. A trope in both literature and film for as long as I think there have been movies and literature, ever since David and Goliath. Frodo versus Sauron, Frodo and the One Ring, all the way through Gilgamesh. And that story, of course, and it works so fantastically in horror. We got everything from, in this particular one, David and his wife versus the unseen eye of the government, the closing grip all around them, trying to either kill them or take them away or disappear them in some way. And then, of course, but all throughout horror, Dracula versus all the villagers versus the fear of Dracula, or the townspeople versus Frankenstein, or the guy trying to save his love from the creature from the Black Lagoon, or even every single final girl versus every single slasher. The force that cannot be stopped, and of course, rising up and being able to do this. I love this because it allows people to connect on I think on a deeply primal level. And of course, we always root for the underdog, because seeing insurmountable odds overcome always makes, I think, is extremely uplifting. And I dug that in this because I dug overall that it was much, much more filled out than the previous one was. The previous one was pretty much just like Night of the Living Dead. Yeah, it was very, very basic. Here's your elements, put them together, mass hysteria, ready to go. Cats and dogs living together, we're good. But in this one, I enjoyed the characters. I'm a big fan of Timothy Olyphant. I think he's a fantastic actor. I loved him in Santa Clarita Diet. I loved him in Justified. I thought he was fantastic in this. The scene when that freaked me out so much. Stabbed through the hand, and then stabbed her in the throat with the knife in his hand.
Yeah.
That
was something I wasn't expecting. That was definitely a scene that I was not expecting.
And then, of course, you're thinking about this. Okay, the virus is in their blood. Okay. Now, as far as we can tell, they haven't been infected yet. Are they immune? We're not 100% sure. But then he pulls the knife through his hand out of her neck. I'm kind of like, okay, well, you're definitely infected now.
Yeah.
You got it.
There was a lot of stuff that played into it. I thought it was
that happens as well in Get Out, where the knife goes through his hand and into her eye. And then the knife is still in his hand, and he uses it on the brother.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's a little bit of knife action right there. A little bit of knife play, that's it. But I mean, going back to the whole David and Goliath trope, that just makes for a good conflict. At the basis of almost every story, every film is conflict in one way or another. You have a protagonist, you have a goal, you have an antagonistic force, and you get conflict. Every single decent film and higher is going to have some kind of conflict. And the conflict just isn't as good as if our main character is Goliath and we watch him just pummel some small force to the ground. Like, oh, okay, that giant over there just beat that kid to death. End of film. Yeah, that was sure entertaining, but you get it from the kid's perspective, and somehow he defeats the giant. We root for him. We connect with him. We're like, man, that was great. I'm surprised he was able to get through.
Definitely a fun one for those who dig watching, I guess the nefarious government get their due, or the way it's handled. But there's some seriously dark stuff and some strong parallels to things that I think take place even today, or taken place in the past and even today, that I think were shot in a way. The cinematography on the film was absolutely stunning, capturing the specific moments, especially since you have two individuals, the primary characters, who are both in positions of authority. You have one is the sheriff and one is the town doctor. So one ensures everyone's safety, the other one ensures everyone's health. And given the level of responsibility that they are the ones that people come to, you come to the husband for justice, you come to the wife if you're sick and you need help. So, and then forced into the situation where their roles mean nothing in the face of this grand, faceless entity. And I love the depiction of that, because even at its absolute worst, when when the deputy is, obviously he's infected and he's quickly expiring, and the roles never cease to be that. She's always the caregiver. He is always the sheriff. Okay, justice is what he does. So he's not looking for revenge. He's looking to balance the scales. Okay, for the lives lost here, and even then, his respect of and his working with Joe Anderson's character, and with Russell, as Russell is obviously declining, and then of course Russell's sacrifice going in front of the go on the bridge, exactly. So it was moments like that really I really loved this movie. I do. It caught me from the trailer, because the trailer was set to the cover of Mad World, the Gary Jules cover of Mad World. I thought it was a brilliant remake, one of the better remakes of a horror film in a long time.
Definitely. I really enjoyed this film. I did. I really enjoyed it. And I mean, just like what she said is, as some of the other films having the violence implied, but this one you needed to see it. You needed to see it to really get the true terrifying aspects of what's going on.
The hunting scene still gets me. Just, people so fucked up that they are driving around hunting other people. But the fact that everyone is insane, but these three guys palled together, which I thought was so odd. But then of course, they're hunting her through the little truck stop, finding their stash of bodies in the back area of the back of the cooler area. So absolutely twisted. And I love the makeup. I thought the makeup design was brilliant. I think going back and looking at the making of, is that in essence the makeup artist who did really extremely detailed work on all of these subjects. I think that the idea was that he opened up a book of infectious diseases and just took like the 10 worst things he could find in that book, and then recreated all of them on one person. Like if you take the 10 worst diseases you could have, you get all of them. That's what these people look like, which is absolutely stellar. I thought it was brilliantly done.
There was a few things in this movie that really didn't work for me, like the whole water supply thing. It's just not how it works. And in rural America, it's not all interconnected. People have like wells and stuff. So they're talking about like the municipal water and, shutting the water down. And it just, some of this stuff didn't really work for me, because I know how those farm areas work. But overall, yeah, it was a pretty good movie. It was a good remake. We were just talking about remakes. This one definitely worked out. So yeah, I'd agree with you. It was pretty good.
So, which actually brings us to our CTA. So we talked a little bit about the original, and then we have this one's a remake. I want to ask the audience, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the original, or do you prefer the remake from 2010? Let us know in the comments below, or email us at weekendhorror@gmail.com.
Or send them directly to Eugene. His phone number is
555. Yeah.
Don't do that.
I keep my phone on silent most of the time anyway, so I'll never get them.
Like, fuck that. God.
So, Krafty.
Yes.
Scary? Not scary? Somewhat scary?
Somewhat scary. There was a few good jump scares, especially the scene in the little restaurant. I loved that scene. It was what I expected from horror. Yeah, it was good.
I think the car wash scene kind of freaked me out a little. That was a brilliant little blend. The car wash scene made me laugh, and it was creepy as hell, because you can't see anything, and they're in the car wash with them. And then, but there was moments it was just like when he's Russell's firing the gun. It was like I saw movement. It's like everything is fucking moving.
But then you get the surprise death at the end, because it yanks a person out. So
that got me. Poor Daniel.
And then what I did like was the helicopter blowing up the car.
Yes.
It reminded me a little bit of Die Hard 4 in reverse, because the car kills the helicopter.
Yeah,
it looks like you've done that before.
And poor Danielle Panabaker, who just can't survive a film to save her life. I swear.
She always dies.
That poor girl. She's going to be up there on the kill count. She'll be challenging Danny Trejo here pretty soon.
Danny.
Then soon Sean Bean.
God.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. Yeah. Oh, excellent stuff. But definitely send us those replies to our weekinhorror@gmail.com. Throw them down there in the comments below. We love hearing what you have to say. We love interacting with you guys there, and we can't wait to see your answers to today's CTAs. So, Alex, we got some birthdays today.
Absolutely. I'd like to take this moment to wish happy birthday to Drew Barrymore, who turns 46. Dang, really? Yeah. All right, yeah, I guess I got to face my mortality soon. 30s is rough, man. All right, so Drew Barrymore turned 46. The always awesome Billy Zane, who turns 55. Australian actress Teresa Palmer, who turns 35. And Halloween 5's Michael Myers actor and stuntman Don Shanks, who turns 71.
You know, even at 71, that dude is still a unit.
He's still, dude, he'll never not be.
I mean, he was Michael Myers, and Michael Myers was just a fucking brick shithouse in Halloween 5.
Just how many people run into him and he doesn't even move? Like, God, that's awesome. 71, man. Tom Flaw killing people.
All right. I think it's about time for our trivia.
We got a trivia question. I think the one thing everybody is here for.
That's the only reason people show up to this. You know that, right?
I'm pretty sure, because we give away free shit.
Like, I don't even care if it's just a t-shirt. I want it.
It's free.
All right, so let's do
Can I do this even though I know the answer?
Oh, you want to read the trivia question?
No,
Can I participate? No,
Oh, no. Oh, I was okay. You want to win it.
I always want to win. You should
She
reads
from a script. This girl reads from a script.
I try. I fail, but I try.
Let's do this one. Actually, this is a good one. I'm actually going to be surprised. I was just talking about the answer to this question with my wife yesterday. All right, before I give anything else away. All right, here's a trivia question. The Signal shares a general plot with Stephen King's novel Cell. The film adaptation of Cell reunited what two legendary actors? The Signal shares a general plot with Cell. The film adaptation Cell reunited what two legendary actors?
And no Googling.
You just have to know this, which is funny because way earlier when we were talking about the first film, somebody was talking about this, that the film shared a similar plot to Cell, but it was a shit book. Or no, it was a great book, but a shit movie.
Yeah, shit movie. We've talked about the Cell already on the podcast.
Yes, we have. The book was great. I thought the book was fantastic. But because I'm biased, I'm a huge King fan. But the movie was absolute crap, especially given the previous movie these two legendary actors were in, which was phenomenal. Which is probably it's in my like top 10 horror films.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
I'm not going to give it away.
I don't know. Hello, Surf. I see Surf in the chat.
Hey, Surf. Good to see you. And Clive Wells, no, it was not Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee, off by about 4 decades.
So Clive has been putting this idea into PhD Tony's head while we're waiting for people to answer. Clive has been putting this idea into people's heads, and with PhD Tony, that this is my audition for the Beardsman.
Got it.
Yeah, apparently this is my audition for the Beardsman.
There you go. Now we got a few popping in. It looks like through first.
Bruce Willis, really? All right, who was it? Yes, Dark Steve. Dark Steve was the first one in the live chat who got it right. John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson were reunited for the film Cell, which shared a similar plot to the film.
Dark Steve didn't even Google it because he spelled Cusack wrong.
and he called him Sam L. Jackson. So, and of course, Charlie Welch, yes, you were correct. Cusack and Jackson. Jinju, also John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. No, Sir Little Wolf, not Bruce Willis and Sam Jackson. That was Die Hard with a Vengeance. Actually, a very good movie. But, and no, Jennifer Lopez. What the fuck?
It's Math Pig. It's Math Pig. Come on.
And Cell was a fantastic book. It was really. I read it on the. I bought it. It was one of the books I've read on a plane when I was traveling somewhere. I think I was going to. Oh, I was thinking The Cell. Oh, that movie.
Oh, The Cell.
That
Oh,
takes
okay.
looks.
Yeah.
And Charlie Welch was the one talking about earlier. He's the one that made that was talking about the book, sharing a similar plot, because the book and the film adaptation of Cell, which was a rushed, terrible production that Eli Roth was really supposed to be attached to, but then he dropped out because of creative differences. Another director came in and actually did a piss poor job of adapting the book. Came out roughly, I think, a few months after this movie, after The Signal came out. So. So Little Wolf says, love the book. Haven't seen the movie. Don't waste your time. Stick with the book. The movie was absolute crap, which is a shame because Sam Jackson and John Cusack were absolutely fucking brilliant in 1408.
That's the movie. We just watched the Cecil Hotel documentary, and we were talking about 1408.
Oh, nice.
1408 was so good. The book and I would actually say the adaptation was better than the book. Because with the book, it gets a little lost in the book got a little bit lost in some weeds as far as like the writer, because this is Stephen King, who's a writer writing, its protagonist is a writer. So I think some of Stephen King kind of bled into that in his thought processes. But I liked having John Cusack contrasting against Sam Jackson. And of course, the director of that, he's Norwegian. I can't remember for life of me remember his last name. But we know that if Sam Jackson is scared of something, if he considers it scary, we know it's legit. And I think that gave the movie a lot of legs.
Here's a question, unrelated to horror in particular, but just in general. So I had this conversation with my sister there a couple of weeks ago, and we were discussing the merits of reading a book series before a movie series, or a book before a movie. And she said that she would rather watch the movie before reading the book because it gives her something to it gives her a reason to invest more in the story. And she wants to know more instead of less and see what's missing. I take the opposite view. I would rather read the original, the source material before watching the movie. What are your thoughts on that?
I hadn't thought about it in that perspective yet. I've always enjoyed them both differently because literature has one side for me, and then film has another side. Just because I engage my kind of like my mind's eye, and the other one I can kind of engage. I can kind of like turn that off and just take the spectacle in for what it is. Interesting. Hadn't thought of it like that. Deliberately approaching it in that order.
Mm-hmm. I never thought about it either. So she was saying whereas I love Harry Potter. Love Harry Potter, don't care. I love it. I love Tolkien. I love Pratchett. But the book series obviously is a lot more detail, and you get disappointed with adaptations of your favorite books, or you have the ability to become upset about it because fandoms are real. But whereas
nice dig there.
But when you watch the movie first and then read the series or read the book, you get more detail, more knowledge, and you're less likely, in her view, which is a very valid view, you're less likely to be disappointed. But the problem is then you have a vision of those characters from the film, whereas I like to create the characters in my mind and then see if the film adaptation matches the characters that I have chosen to invest in.
I absolutely agree with that 100%. I love reading because you get to build the characters yourself the way that you perceive them. You get to build the story. You get to build everything yourself. You get so much more detail through a book. I feel like when people write a book, and I'm not comparing like writers to filmmakers because those are two very, very difficult things to do. But when you have a book, I feel you could put more down with less than in a movie. With a movie, you're forced to create those. What you create is absolute. It's on the screen. That's what this character looks like. That's how they act. That's how they pronounce words. But in a book, you get to do that all yourself, and I like that aspect. I absolutely love reading books for that. Audiobooks are like my best friend because I drive a lot with my job, and I get to sit there and imagine these things in my head and make my own movie. When you have like filmmakers, they have to actually do that. And like I said, it's more absolute. There's no changing it. You can't build around what you're thinking. So I like the aspect of reading a book before a movie, because I can build up what I think and then I can compare the movie to it. I'm not investing as much time as I would with a book. And it's fun to play around with that. And one of them, JL is going to disagree with me, but like The Mist, the book and the movie it was one of the most impressive things in the whole world, because like I read the book, I imagined these characters, I imagined the store that they were in, I imagined the monsters, and then the movie came out and it was like picture for picture in my head on the screen, and I was super impressed with that. And it's cool when it works out like that, and a lot of times it's not like that because it's hard to adapt a book because it goes so into depth. But yeah, no, I would agree with you. I love reading books first and then seeing the films, especially with Harry Potter. Get out of here, seriously.
Right?
I love Harry Potter, and like I read all the books, and then I got to see the movies, and it was like I keep going back and forth between reading the books and watching the movie.
We were having this discussion because on Sky they had I think they still have the Harry Potter channel where you can watch all of the Harry Potters in sequence, and we were having this discussion. So the first 4 books came out when I was young, and then the 5th book I was like late teens or mid-teens, and so I was there at Eason's waiting for my copy at midnight, and like stayed up for 3 days reading it. Did not sleep at all, and the whole thing, I got so upset because when I seen the movie, the whole thing was sold on the conversation between Harry and Dumbledore, and then they didn't show any of it. The whole point of that book was that revelation of the prophecy. They didn't show a damn thing.
No,
of
and
that discussion.
that's just it would have taken up so much of the movie that.
But that was the whole movie. That was
right. Yeah, it was the whole book. Yeah.
That would have taken about 10 minutes. All that dialogue could have taken, because you had the visual aspect. It could have taken 10 minutes, and they just didn't put it in, and I was so upset. I know it's a hard job, but I have to bring that up.
Let's see what the chat says here. Charlie Wolf says, "Hey, have you watched the new Stand yet?" I have not myself. I think some of us may be watching some episodes. I'm waiting for all of it to come out before, so I can binge it all in one sitting.
I've seen the first episode. It's really good.
Excellent. That's good to hear. All right. And then, of course, Clive Well says, Krafty Keelah, read the chat back if you don't believe me. I don't think it's an audition because I wouldn't want to audition you. I'd just switch you out.
He's saying that it wasn't his idea. It was Tony's.
Yeah, Tony's afraid that, I made him feel all expendable and shit. And, while he may be, I don't plan on switching him out anytime soon.
Hang on,
but if I was going to,
hang on. You gave us Ghost the Real. He gave us Yes, I Fucking Can. He is not expendable.
No. Given enough time, like discoursing with me, you'll eventually find something to jump on. You'll eventually end up screaming something that will become meme worthy. Math Pig says, "Okay, question before bed. Weekend Horror Unfriended. Have you seen it? And quick thoughts." I have seen it, and I thought that it sucked.
Oh, Unfriended, actually, I thought it was very interesting. For the most part, I mean, it was a bit overkill, but that was the thing. Yeah, that was the thing about Facebook, and they only have one friend.
The thematic elements are very, very apparent, but they kind of smack you in the face with it. And I was kind of like, okay, I get it. We have a theme here, and I get the kind of like. Exactly. It was just so on the nose, like, come on, guys. And then, of course, that's why it was so extreme in depiction of the characters and what that girl is doing. The point that it was to offset that. It was like, okay, we have this major theme, and we're going to hit him in the face with it. So we have to really up the violence and what the characters are going through in order to kind of cover that up. So it felt kind of disjointed in that respect. It's like, okay, they're only doing this because they've smacked me in the face so many times with their the evils of social media. idea. So I think it could have been done better. There have been others that have been done better. Let me see. Clive Wells. Usually a movie is a disappointment compared to the book, unless there are significant differences. True. I have to agree. So Little Wolf says loves reading the book first. I do think that if you've watched the movie first, it can solidify the images of the characters and their voices in your head. It can kind of anchor you to them, and then you go to read the book, and then you basically just take what you got from the movie and put it in the book. I like the book, going with the book first, honestly, because I can create all those myself, and I can hear those characters feel more personal to me. And before I see, Peter Jackson's take on Frodo and Bilbo and Gandalf. Charlie Wells says, wasn't there something birthday related happening tonight that you'd mentioned? Because it's mine today, like a prize thing.
Happy birthday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Charlie Welch.
And absolutely, we're in the process of making that happen. I will have a social media post sometime this week. Things got a little crazy. Not that I like to make excuses, but things have been a little nuts the last couple of days.
Yes.
So we will have something up and running this week. It'll just be you go in, punch in your birthday. We'll have a list of birthdays, and we'll get you something little something maybe from the store. And like I said, I'll have a social media post put out sometime in the next few days. But I will remember. We'll get your info, and yeah, we're still on it. We didn't forget about it.
Awesome. See, so Little Wolf says, love the Mist movie, hated the ending. I also hated that ending because I've never wanted.
We don't have a whole other podcast.
Yeah, I know. I've never wanted to eat. I've never had a horror film make me want to eat a bullet. Which that one did.
They did eat a bullet.
I know, and I wanted to fucking join them so I didn't have to think about that fucking ending anymore. God damn. So Dark Steve, horror chat. That's pretty much what we're doing. Yeah, it's horror chat. Definitely, Matt.
Well, we were talking about Harry Potter when he typed that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, okay, and Dark Steve with the new hashtag Tony must stay. Tony's going to stay for now.
Can't get rid of him. That's not about
hashtag Tony is not expendable. Thank you, Clive Wells. You're wrong, but thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Well, we would like to give a giant thank you to Krafty Keelah for joining us for tonight's Week in Horror Abattoir. We are so glad you made it through relatively unscathed. Is there anything coming up for you that you would like to plug for the audience?
Yes, ish.
Yeah.
Work at 5 a.m. No sleep. I have a new episode of Challenging Conspiracies I was supposed to release this week. Unfortunately, because of other things, I couldn't, and I had to redo parts of it. So that's going to come out next week instead. I have a weekly show on Sunday mornings, my time at 11:30 a.m. UTC. It's Life on the Flip Side with Steam and Cup of Reason. What else have I got? Oh, I have a debate coming up on the Plot Holes channel at some point, I think on the 20th. Correct me if I'm wrong, Johnny O. And that is, I don't know what the title is. We have to talk about the title actually. But it's revolving around my dislike for the taste of bacon. And then I have the first week of March, I'm hoping. I have a new show starting on my channel, which is more political. It is looking at, because my history is in sociology, we're going to be looking at issues in our society and how they became issues. So it's not just saying this is an issue. We're looking at the history and how they actually developed. So the first one is going to be on the situation in Burma, or Myanmar, as most people will know it now because of all the publicity around Myanmar, and what actually happened, what's led to the situation that we have, where we have a new coup. So yeah, that's going to happen.
Awesome. Fantastic. And of course, a new hashtag is in. Clive Wells says hashtag switch Irish demon for Krafty.
Yeah, you can only have one Irish person on stream, I think.
Rules of the internet.
It's just too much.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous when we get talking. Math Pig will tell you actually, because Math Pig is from Northern Ireland, and me, himself, and Cider and Port get together, and we talk so fast that a lot of people are unable to keep up. It's great.
Let's see. Plot hole says scariest part of they were talking about Tusk in the chat film that I love from Kevin Smith. Scariest part of Tusk was Haley Joel Osment's face didn't keep up with the rest of his growing up. It's pretty much the same. And of course, Charlie Welch, I don't want to mention that dude on this stream. We'll save that for my personal channel. That guy doesn't deserve any mention here. Dark Steve says bacon is life at Krafty Keelah. You remember that. And the George said at Weekend Horror and Plot Hole, there's no leg there. That was the best line of the century. There's no leg there. Yes, it's Tusk when he cuts his leg off. Brilliant fucking shit. Oh, well, thank you to everybody. Oh, man, Krafty, it has been an absolute blast having you out. You're far tougher than Irish Demon was. I have no doubt that if I'd showed Irish Demon stuff like the Crazies and Get Out, or maybe even Room for Rent, that he would have freaked out and not been able to finish the movies. So hats off to you. Thank you for enjoying our Abattoir.
Thank you for having me. It was fun. It's late, but it's been fun.
Awesome.
Yes, we'll definitely have to have you on again soon.
Yeah. If you can handle me back.
Probably earlier next time, huh?
Yeah, we'll be earlier next time.
Yeah, I have to get up in 2 hours to go to work.
Nice.
All right, so we'll dive right into the closing real quick. So you can try to get an hour and a half of sleep. And that concludes another episode of Weekend Horror. Thank you all so much for listening, and we truly hope you enjoyed the show. Visit us at weekendhorror.net, where you can find the links to all of our episodes, our bios, our merch store at Teespring, and of course, enter your email for a permanent entry to win a mystery horror shirt every month. For more horror entertainment, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Followers get our daily splatter, a bit of horror info every day right to your feed. You never know what you might discover. We really hope you enjoy the new live format, and we'd love to get your feedback. Subscribe to our channel and smash that bell like a zombie head for the latest information on the show. And lastly, if you truly love what we do here and you would like and are able to support our production, you can through our PayPal and our Patreon. We have Patreon tiers as low as $1, bonus and exclusive content, and horror films every month. Links to everything, including our Discord community, where you can find film recommendations, trailer, trivia games, and even interact directly with us, are below. But we know these are trying times, and things are extremely tight. As always, simply liking and sharing this show to your local horror community is always the absolute best way to help us continue to grow. We appreciate each and every one of you for your continued listenership. I'm Eugene.
I'm Alex.
I'm JL.
And we'll see you next week. And as always, stay scared.